Testing.
Meeting? Yes. One moment, okay. Welcome everyone to the regular meeting of the San Rafael City Council. Today's Monday, May 20th. Apologize for our slightly later start, but we are glad you are here. I'll request the city clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Bushy. Present. Vice Mayor Hill.
Present.
Councilmember Kurtz.
Present.
Councilmember Yaden Scolati.
Present.
Mayor Kate.
Present, all five of us are here this evening. I'll invite our Assistant City Attorney Coyle to report out on the closed session that was held prior to this meeting.
There are no reportable actions from closed session. Thank you.
Thank you. As I said, welcome if you're zooming in or watching online or here in person. We're thrilled that you're here. As always, I like to start with gratitude towards our staff and what they do every single day for our community. And this week, a special shout out to the Department of Public Works, as this week is National Public Works Week. We do have a proclamation on our consent agenda, which we'll not be reading, but I do want to highlight one sentence. Public Works personnel are involved in the maintenance, planning, design, and construction of streets, transportation facilities, parks, storm drains, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our residents, as well as our right-of-way management. I can tell you that is a lot. I can also tell you that our community cares so much about our infrastructure. So kudos to Director Miller and her team. We know that the demands on your team are enormous. They're ongoing, and I think they get bigger every single year. So we are celebrating you this week, but every week of the year. So thank you so much. In June, it's Gun Violence Awareness Month, and the city will be considering a proclamation at our June meeting, when I'll say more on the topic. But I did want to highlight prior an annual walk across the Golden Gate Bridge because it's going to be held on June 1st, and our next meeting would be after the walk. So this is a walk that is organized by Moms Demand Action. People wear orange and they walk together and show up in support of gun violence survivors. It's Saturday, June 1st at 11 a.m. You can sign up to participate through Everytown for Gun Safety Marin website, or you can just show up wearing orange. And finally, we include a land acknowledgement as part of our opening. And in addition to the statement, the city collaborates with the tribe over our shared issues. We thank the original caretakers of this land. San Rafael is traditionally home to the Coast Miwok people, many of whom today are tribal citizens of the Federated Indians of Great Rancheria. And we honor their continuing involvement in stewardship practices that benefit us all. Now the city clerk will describe how people can participate in tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Mayor Kate. Tonight's meeting is being recorded and streamed live to YouTube for members of the public wishing to provide public comment displayed on the podium, and the projector is a timer to help you stay within your 2-minute time frame. You're invited, though not required, to introduce yourself and say what part of Centerville you live in or if you're from outside of the area. We are offering closed captioning for this evening's meeting on Zoom. You can select the live transcript button on Zoom to enable that feature. And if you're experiencing any technical difficulties, you can email me at city.clerk@cityofcenterfell.org. Thank you.
Thank you. First on our agenda is our city manager and council member reports. I will turn to the city manager for her report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just a few quick announcements. The Police Accountability and Advisory Committee, I'm going to continue to announce this because it's a new committee for the next few months, is this Wednesday, May 22nd at 6 p.m. in the council chambers. You can participate in person or you can watch the meeting via Zoom. Also, an exciting week event on the 23rd. On Thursday is the Pacific's home opener at 6 o'clock at Albert Park. And our own Mayor Kate's going to be throwing out the first pitch. So she's quite the athlete. It'll be fun to show up for that. I also wanted to invite the community to a pride flag raising ceremony that we're going to have on June 3rd before the next council meeting at 5:45 on the steps of City Hall. And to honor Pride Month. And then just a reminder that Farmers Market is back in fully in all its wonderfulness on Thursdays, running from 5:30 to 8:30 through August 24th downtown. So I got.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Kate. I have a couple of events that I attended. The Saturday before last, on May 11th, the Made Madness event was as brilliant as it has been in previous years. The energy was wonderful. And last Saturday, May 18th, went and visited the 3rd annual C Street celebration, sponsored by Youth and Arts. It was amazing. Assemblage of music, chalk art, the number of children on the street drawing on the street, including my daughter, was amazing. And then also attended the State of the City, which I'm sure we'll talk about every council member. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kurtz.
Thank you. Yep, State of the City, which was fantastic. The Homeless Policy Steering Committee, I was nominated as the co-chair to serve with Supervisor Lucan for that committee. And so excited to continue in that role. We finalized the recommendations for the CDBG Community Development Grants. We reviewed those the last council meeting, and we had a bit of a discussion of if the amount came in lower than what was originally projected. It came in $7,000 less, so it just got reduced by a little, and they've adjusted those accordingly. And I was invited to attend Laurel Dell's 5th grade class on sea level rise. They did a huge project. And it's been basically a full year. And for some of the students, since they were in 4th grade with the same project and now 5th grade, it was really fantastic to see their work. Thank you to Director Bithofer also being there, and his daughter was there, who is an alum from Laurel Dell. And the kids really got to see and understand, and great partnership with Youth and Arts and many others. That's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Bushy.
It's been a busy couple of weeks. The San Rafael Sanitation District and the work with the Central Marin Sanitation Agency, that's our wastewater collection agency, and our wastewater treatment agencies, respectively. The work there overlapped in the last couple of weeks. In that, San Rafael Sanitation District has sent a letter to CMSA suggesting that we begin negotiation amongst our staff on an operating agreement, a joint operating agreement between the two agencies. This would be seen as a first step towards some sort of operational consolidation and perhaps even more consolidation in the future. But it's a big move that is underway. At CMSA, when the proposal came forward, there were some questions from our neighboring sanitation collection district, the Ross Valley Sanitation District. Those questions were answered, I believe, to their satisfaction. They voted in favor of proceeding with the negotiations. So bottom line, things are moving forward in a way that will hopefully bring efficiencies to our sanitation district operations. Another fun thing, this past weekend, Station 55 held their open house, extremely well attended. Thank you, Mayor Kate, for attending. Everyone out in my district loves a fire truck, and so they were all there. It was great. And it was really great to see the facilities so much improved. Although I always like to remind people that the funding for that station was approved in 2013, the year the mayor and I were first elected. So that's how long it takes. Now, granted, we were busy with the building across the street in the interim, but it takes some time to get to the happy day when we can all have balloons and wear fire hats. And also I'd like to thank the mayor for meeting with me and one of our district developers talking about business opportunities in the area. And in another historical event, the Loch Lomond Oversight Committee. Many of you are familiar with Andes and the housing around it. That site was first approved by our predecessors in 2007. 2007. That's when it was approved. They have just finished constructing all of the single family housing. So about 70 units of housing are actually built and done there and have been sold. And I believe that's the largest residential real estate development that has actually been built in San Rafael since 2007. So some food for thought there for all of us. And this past weekend, I had a fun time at the Civic Center, where the Postpartum Support Center was hosting its 4th annual Walk for Moms. It was a great event. They had all sorts of support organizations, where I've learned that the new prenatal vitamins are like gummies and they're flavored. They're not those big horse pills they made us swallow. So yeah, I learned all sorts of new things. But the Postpartum Support Center is doing a great job, and everyone was out, and I'm very happy to support them. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Yorenz Gulati.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Attended also the State of the City dinner, and just wanted to recognize the city, because I think it does a phenomenal work. Mayor Kate did a great speech, and really appreciate to go through everything, all the updates from the city, and also how lucky we are to have our San Rafael Chamber of Commerce and all the businesses that I attended. So it was really, it's always a great event, but it always makes me, remember that. And I also attended this morning the C-Level Rise Subcommittee with Mayor Kate, had a preview of what's coming, and there's going to be an event on June 8th. I know that they are still working on the details, but it's going to be in Pickleweed or the Alborough Center, and it will be a great community event. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. I have an update on SMART, the Sonoma Marin Area Rapid Transit. May ridership continues to increase. The May ridership was 25% over what it was in 2023. In addition, we also count pathway, people that are using the pathway, and there's now a new pathway counter in San Rafael. It's on the path at Lincoln Hill. It's on the Caltrans right away. So when you go by and you see it's like this high and it's painted yellow, that is counting the number of folks biking or walking on our pathway. SMART continues to start work on the Windsor extension. And then, which will be very exciting for most people, or many people, SMART will be doing a pilot shuttle, which connects from the SMART station to the Larkspur Ferry. And this is a project that we're doing in conjunction with TAM, Transportation Authority of Marin, and Golden Gate. As you know, if you have done that walk, it's a little bit over a quarter of a mile. So a shuttle, we're hoping, will make it more seamless for folks that are taking SMART to the ferry. In terms of additional events, we've talked about State of the City, and I'll just add it was hosted at the Rafael Theater, which was a lovely venue. So a shout out to the folks at Christopher B. Smith for providing that venue, and the Chamber for having a great event. I was able to cut the ribbon for the farmer's market. Our city manager, Lilovich, already talked about that, but summer is here. It definitely felt like it today. Every Thursday, starting at 5:30, we look forward to a lot of participation from our community over the summer. I was able to attend as with City Manager Lilovich and Director Micah Henkel, the North Bay Leadership Luncheon. At that luncheon, our very own head building official, Don Jebson, was awarded. He had received an award by the North Bay Leadership Council it's called Cutting the Red Tape. And it really was for recognizing the work he has done to facilitate folks, both commercial and residential, getting permits and moving through our internal system. So it was a great event and fantastic to have Don be honored there. And then finally, this morning, as you know, San Rafael's participated in the Gun Safety Collaborative since the beginning. So we had our meeting this morning, which is why I was reminding you about the Wear Orange event in June. In addition, we heard a fantastic presentation that I'll be checking in with our Commission on Aging representative about when you have a life plan of different phases in your life, to also have one for firearm owners, what they'll do about their firearms at different life phases. And there's been a lot of work done in Colorado around that. And there's a whole toolkit. So I'll be connecting with Councilmember Kurtz on that. So thank you as always for all the work that's been going on and that we're able to get out in the community every single day. Before we go to the consent agenda, I will receive any public comment on the city manager reports that were just given. If you're interested, if you would tell your name and what part of San Rafael you're from, you don't have to, but we invite you to, if you would like to.
My name is Ava Crisanti, and I research and write the Substack Marin County Confidential.substack.com. And I want to point out that none of you mentioned that the 1-year anniversary of the death of Jimmy Sanders is coming up. This was a Black U.S. Marine Corps veteran whom you first remanded into that deadly police-run internment camp under the freeway that had no bathrooms, showers, running water, etc. He got deathly sick there, ended up in intensive care at Marin General, and subsequently died last July 29th without ever being housed. I bring this up because a CPRA I ran to the county indicates how much time Kate Collin and especially Rachel Kurtz have spent fussing about, oh my God, what happens if the Board of Supervisors has a ceasefire resolution on the agenda? There's a voluminous amount of email about this involving Kurtz especially, but also apparently from Collin. And what's interesting is that I ran a similar CPRA on San Rafael, and I've received nothing. I mean, the bulk of what I received from San Rafael on that is only pretty much junk mail sent to Eli Hill. Now, I just talked to Lindsay Lara, and she explained that you're understaffed. This is a cheap excuse. That your software sucks. This is a cheap excuse. If I'm getting this correspondence from the county, it needs to come from you too. When is it coming? And it shouldn't be censored. It shouldn't be delayed. The most serious correspondence I saw from Kate Collin, look at me, Mayor Kate, when I am talking to you. The most serious correspondence, the most disturbing correspondence at this time during a genocide is from Rachel Kurtz and Kate Collin, and there is no excuse for not.
Time is up, Ms. Crisanti. I'm taking comment on the council member reports. Public open time will be at the end of the meeting as well. Yes, welcome.
Shinji Sakai Agi. I live over by McGinnis Golf Course. As a bicyclist, thank you for taking that tally along the smart pathway. McGinnis Golf Course, we're going to get our own smart pathway that comes through there, so I'm very excited. The shuttle to get to the ferry, thank you very much for setting that up. The cost of smart trains come down so much. I mean, it's basically free if you're a kid or if you're over 64 years old. It's wonderful, and I think this timing is perfect. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else like to comment on the council member or city manager report? Not seeing anyone, I will close the public comment and return to the consent agenda. Any items to be held on the consent agenda? Not seeing any. I will open public comment on the consent agenda, and that is items 4A through 4G.
I'm speaking on consent calendar 4B, legal services agreement. I think that the city needs to be a little more clear about why it's so disastrously behind in its responses to CPRAs. When I spoke to your city clerk just about 15 minutes ago, she explained how understaffed you are. She explained that she had put in a request for a temp to help her deal with the volume of CPRAs you have. I want to remind you that you are not the city of Oakland or San Francisco with a giant population. There is only so many CPRA requests you could possibly receive. It's not a huge volume. It's manageable, but you're not managing it. I don't know why your city manager, maybe she can explain, why this request for a temp to help deal with the volume of CPRA requests, which probably isn't that huge, was denied. Lindsay Lara tells me that there's only 2 people working on the CPRA requests. 2 people. You're not a poor city. You're doing fine financially. There's no excuse. And what it looks like is Mayor Collin, that what you are doing is declining to hire a temp to meet your civic obligation and your legal obligation to respond to the CPRAs. As I pointed out, in the time that Israel has been genociding civilians in Gaza, and I'm sure everybody saw the ICC warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu today. By the way, Rachel Kurtz's group, JCRC, which created her, she's the co-chair of a subgroup. They just announced that
Thank you for your comment.
They just announced that
Time
the
is up.
charges were quote
Thank you,
unquote
Ms. Prasante.
absurd.
Your time is up. Thank you for your comments. Any other consent agenda item public comments? Not seeing any. I'll bring it back to the council. I request a motion on this item.
I'll make a motion. Oh,
Moved. A second, please.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
If I may, that was Jordan Galati moved and Kurtz seconded.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Bushy.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hill.
Aye.
Councilmember Kurtz.
Aye.
Councilmember Jordan Galati.
aye.
Mayor Kate.
Aye, that motion carries 5-0. Our first item on our agenda for a public hearing is ordinance amending green building codes. Welcome, Corey Bidoff.
Thank you.
The
Nice
floor
to
is
see you all
yours.
tonight. And we have Don Jepson, the inimitable Don Jepson online as well with us. And stop share, Bill. Boom, boom. Okay. Okay, there we go. Great. So thank you very much. We're here tonight to review our single-family existing buildings reach code proposal. And I know we have a big agenda, so I'll get right into it. First of all, I just want to note that I accidentally put the wrong cost effectiveness study in your packets. So I emailed you all this afternoon and city clerk has put it in the packet. I put in there the new construction for single family when it's the existing construction. So apologies for that. We're going to go over the background and rationale and then the code updates and everything that's happened to date. And then Don's going to take over and tell you a little bit about the actual reach code proposal and recommendation. And then we'll just brief on the timeline and next steps so we can get into Q&A as well. So the background and rationale for this is, as you remember, every 3 years, the building codes are updated at the state level, and we have the opportunity to do reach codes at the same time. State codes more and more are driven by the state's goals of 100% renewable energy and trying to get buildings to net zero. So there's no emissions from the buildings at all. And then locally, it's driven by our climate action plan and general plan programs. The climate action plan was integrated into the general plan. And as you know, I like to say, have you ever reduced anything in your life by 40%? So we have to be able to attack it from every opportunity that we can. And buildings is one of the main areas for emissions. And then the county role, the county provides a lot of support. They lead the model REACH code process every few years. They actually have adopted the REACH code that we're bringing forward to you tonight. And they support all the jurisdictions with community engagement and development of interfacing with the state and data and all sorts of stuff. And then on occasion, we call together an ad hoc subcommittee, and council members Bushy and Jorns Galati have helped us with some of the challenging questions as we went through this analysis. So why are we getting at buildings? So this is our emissions pie for San Rafael. This is our in-boundary emissions, the things that we actually create right here. This doesn't take into account the upstream emissions that are from the things that we purchase. But as you can see, the built environment, electricity and natural gas make up about 31% of our greenhouse gas emissions as of 2022. And the vast majority of it is natural gas as more of our electricity gets to be more renewable. So again, in terms of the building and energy codes, they're updated on a 3-year code cycle. But then halfway through, they surprise us with these intervening codes. And generally, they're very light. They're minor tweaks. But this year, they're actually fairly substantial. And so part of our recommendation this year is to integrate some of those intervening codes into our local code. As Don got that award for making things simpler for people, this is that whole piece of it again. Do you want to go looking 2 places for codes, or can we integrate whenever possible so it's easier for applicants and for staff as well? And then every 3 years, we have this opportunity for REACH codes, and the state supports REACH codes. They want local jurisdictions to do REACH codes. They support it by providing cost effectiveness studies. They provide it by providing data and helping you write the codes as well. The whole point is that a lot of these REACH codes end up becoming state code later on, and they recognize this is a good way for local jurisdictions to get at their climate goals. So San Rafael typically enacts REACH codes. We did the last cycle, we did the cycle before, and I'll go over a little bit of the REACH codes that you all adopted at the end of 2022 as well. So there was 2 main things. One was existing new construction, and it was an electrification requirement. We prohibited natural gas in new construction for most building types, including residential and commercial and multifamily. And then we prohibited if you went and you built a new building, you couldn't go and add gas later. There were many exceptions, including restaurants and for things like infeasibility or hardship. And then we also included a prohibition on gas line extensions in existing single-family homes. And that whole idea was what gas you have is the gas that you get. If you wanted to increase your gas use by putting in a hot tub, for instance, you had to decrease it someplace else. And then effective was January 4th, 2023. The other part of that REACH code was this robust electric vehicle REACH code. And this is getting that chicken egg piece about, do you need to have the electric vehicle charging infrastructure first? Do you get the vehicle first? Well, what if I live in an apartment complex? And so this REACH code actually came from a lot of work in the South Bay at Peninsula Clean Energy. And we looked at that in the county and we adopted it together. And the idea there was, let's get a lot of EV readiness in multifamily. If you get it in there and you get it right up to the stub out, all you need to do is pop in a charger later. It's much easier than having to pull conduit or do a lot of electrical upgrades later. So that was the essential piece for electric vehicle requirements. Since then, of course, there was the California Restaurant Association case versus the City of Berkeley. City of Berkeley was the first in the state to adopt an all-electric ordinance and prohibited gas for new construction. And the CRA sued and actually lost initially, but then it went to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal, which agreed that based on federal law, the appeals court, and Genevieve, you can correct me if I'm wrong, basically said the Energy Policy and Conservation Act gave the federal authorities the only authority to regulate covered appliances and the energy that goes to them. So any kind of appliance. So regulating it and saying no gas was basically stepping on the feet of the federal government to be able to regulate energy efficiency in these covered appliances. It doesn't affect the building envelope. It doesn't affect things like the insulation and windows and those types of things. It affects these covered products. So in essence, Berkeley has to repeal their ordinance, and it affects all cities with gas bans, including San Rafael. So our recommendation is to make sure that our codes align with federal law, to repeal the all-electric and gas limit requirements, 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 to repe But again, we don't have to repeal the EV requirements. Instead, all we're saying is because there were some significant changes in the intervening codes for electric vehicle requirements, we just want to incorporate them, but we get to keep our robust EV requirements. So that's the recommendation before you. So intervening codes, I mentioned that they're a lot more robust and a lot more complicated this year. So a lot of charger changes in the EV charger definitions. They removed the whole idea of EV capable. They have some very specific things about types of vehicle and types of chargers and allowances for shared circuits. There's a lot of heat pump and electric ready requirements for single family, multifamily. There's some new solar requirements for single family homes. And then there's this whole life cycle analysis and deconstruction piece, which is for these really big projects that we don't really see very often. And the whole idea is like low carbon concrete. And if you're going to just demolish a big building, that you can deconstruct it and take out some of those usable materials and make sure they're reused. So all these intervening codes take effect whether we do anything or not. Again, all we're really trying to do is take the things that are really connected to what we already have in our local code and bring them into our local code so it's all there in one place and easy to follow. And then the other thing that I'll just mention is, there's regulation, but then there's the whole side of providing technical assistance and support, removing obstacles so that people can do the things they want to do. There's a lot of people that actually want to electrify their homes, but it's not an easy thing. And so we sat down with folks that had done it recently here in San Rafael and picked their brains and came up with this 8 steps to electrify your home. And it's been used by other jurisdictions now as well. And the Marin Builders Association is going to include it in their summer home guide as well, which is really nice. So with that, again, I just remind you that I did swap out the cost effectiveness study, and we'll turn it over to Don to give you an update on the recommendation for the existing building reach code. And Don, you can tell me when to move along.
Thank you, Corey. Appreciate being here tonight. I'm Don Jepson, Chief Building Official for City of San Rafael. Basic 2 parts is we're looking to our previous amendments had a local adoption for mechanical code and plumbing code. We're basically reversing that to the base code. We're doing some updates to the EV chargers. San Rafael kind of set a high bar in January of 2023. The state had kind of matched us in a couple of those categories, so we're just reflecting some of those changes. And then the last item we'll be including is the new flex path requirements. This is a point system, and there'll be a little bit more on that when we get to there. But it allows you to earn points for certain changeouts, like going to a more efficient heating system or going to more efficient windows or adding insulation. And these are typically for remodels over 500 square feet. Next slide. So in San Rafael, we have about 24,000 residential units. About half are single family dwellings. Next slide. The purpose of this is to help reduce greenhouse gases. Also, there could, we get a lot of requests from the public what they can do to be more energy efficient. So in some ways, this also goes to support the public and maintain those good customer relationships and experiences we have. And we also looked at these to try to eliminate any unintended consequences. I think one of the unintended consequences we had last year is we didn't realize the federal government was going to get involved with the Ninth Circuit Court outcome, and there was an unintended consequence that there was federal mandates that we didn't take into account. Next slide. So the pathway for new existing buildings is going to be this flex tool, and it gives the homeowner a bunch of different choices of what they could add to their project to be more energy efficient. And it's based on the cost effectiveness study the state gave us. It does not require electrification. And some of the local jurisdictions have already adopted it, like San Anselmo, Fairfax, and the county. So as I mentioned just a moment ago, this flex path would only affect single-family dwellings. These would be like single-family dwellings, duplexes, triplexes, and townhomes. Those are all kind of considered single-family dwellings together. It would affect projects that are more than 500 square feet. So if you think of a two-car garage, typically two-car garages are right around 400 square feet, between 400 and 500 square feet. So it would be a space that you're completely remodeling in your home that would be about that equivalent. And it would apply to projects that were built before 2010. And the reason for that is older projects have a larger benefit to upgrading their window or insulation or their heating source than newer projects since 2010. And that's reflected in the study the state gave us in support. We anticipated, and Corey, I spent a lot of time on this, going through a couple of years worth of data, trying to figure out how many projects this would actually affect. We did find in our project base that lots of times projects of this size, people were already going and taking the next step of including like windows or insulation or upgrading their heat source when they do these projects. And so they're already kind of already following this. And so we're like, well, we could give them points for that, and they probably would pass without needing to do much more. So then we identified that there was probably about 40 to 60 projects that this would affect in a calendar year. And in perspective, we do about 5,000 permits annually. So this would be about 40 to 60 of those type projects. The cost of compliance could be as little as $500 or even maybe a little bit more than $4,000. It just depends on the product, the item you're selecting for your remodel. And as I mentioned, older homes before 1978 would benefit a lot more. And so we give them more points, but we also kind of require more points for those older homes. And it should impact the GHG by 20 to 22% per building. So how it works is we have 3 different categories depending on the vintage of your home. If it was pre-78, we're looking at a target score of 8 points. If it's between 1978 to 1971, you would have to earn 8 points. And if it's from 1992 to 2010, you would have to earn 4 points. And then below this, we got items E through PV that will give you those points. And so you can do any combinations of those points along with your project. Some of the ones that I believe would have the most impact, and it's kind of close to my heart, dealing with mechanical contractors that talk about how much duct systems leak, would be item E5 and E6. And you can see that by just replacing or making sure your ducts are sealed, that you're not losing that conditioned air, you can earn 6 to 9 points just for that one item. And I believe we have a couple examples. The next slide, Corey. So this is an example of a ranch style 1960 home, perhaps doing a 600 square foot addition with some interior remodel associated with that. And they're also, like some of our examples we found in our research, at this time are also replacing windows. So what does that look like in the Flex tool? So since they're before 1978, they would have to hit a target score of 12. Because they're already replacing the windows, we're giving them 5 points for that. So it reduces them to 7 points less. So they could look at the rest of this list and add 7 points to that. They might also qualify if they did solar recently. We would give them 16 points for that solar. It doesn't necessarily have to be in this project phase, but if they've done something recent, we can give them points for that. Or maybe they've changed out their gas stove and provided an induction stovetop. We also could give them 1 point for that. So in pretty short order, since they're already replacing the windows, they can look at this menu and pick another 7 points of items on there. The next scenario we have is for a home built in the 80s. And this is adding a second story. They've recently added some flex tool measures. And we'll see on the next slide, since they're a 1980 home, they'll be in the middle category. They will need to target 8 points. With their recent hot water heating package and induction stovetop that they've already have done, that gives them 2 points. So they would have 6 points left. Again, if they went and looked at sealing their ducts or adding new ducts, they would get 6 points for that. If they were looking at air sealing the home, making sure it's nice and tight, they could get 2 points for that. Or again, if they had some other project recently like solar PVCs, they would have 15 points. And I think we have one more scenario. Yes, we do. 1995 home with a 1,000 square foot addition, the first and second story addition. And in that flex path, they would only need 4 points. And the reason the points are reduced is as the codes have progressed from 1978 to 1992, the codes have already built into them more requirements for insulation, more requirements for efficient appliances or heating appliances, better windows, better sealing, more mandated testing for those ceilings. So houses that are built later are already tighter and already meeting that standard. So just to bump them up to the next level to 2010 or since 2010, they just need a small amount of points. And so in this case, they could select 4 points off the last column and meet the requirements. Looking forward, and I'm really excited about this, we're on our way and we're working diligently with a consultant on developing a new permit software system. We're into it for about 2 or 3 months. It probably will last for about 6 months more. We're hoping to have that up and running by the end of the year. The software system will give us better ways of tracking projects. Will give us opportunities for clients to track their projects, do inspections, look at our plan reviews, and get their input for their choices like on this Flex tool. And then once it's operating and we've been in it for a little bit, we'll review and make adjustments as necessary. But I think there's a lot of good opportunities where we can have forms that will streamline and make this process easy as part of our new software package. Our next step, if adopted, is to submit to the California Energy Commission. They will take a look at the adoption process, and when they approve it, it will be effective in probably August or September. And we will continue to explore other measures as they come up. We'll be facing the next code cycle probably about this time next year. And so we'll be coming back to the council probably at the end of next year for more code updates.
Thank you, Tom.
Back to you, Corey.
Open it up for public hearing and get your questions.
Great. We'll start with questions from the council. Vice Mayor Hill, questions.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Kate. I'm going to ask for a speculation. With respect to how the ruling came down from the Ninth Circuit, what is a probable expectation of how that might be resolved if and when it goes to the higher court for appeal?
It's not going to any higher court for appeal. Berkeley settled. So as far as I know, it's complete.
Is there any other route forward to in other ways consider how to regulate gas usage in our community?
there's certainly a lot of people thinking about it and talking about it and meeting about it all throughout the state. And I know the state codes team is looking at it. There are some different proposals out there. I haven't seen anything that's super compelling yet, but California Green Cities is looking at it, and the state is looking at the codes team. So I know the South Bay has put forward something, but we haven't had a chance to really look at what's being proposed right now.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Councilmember Kurtz.
Thank you for the update. Appreciate it. It does feel like we're taking 2 steps forward, sometimes 4 steps back. And I know that's not in our control necessarily, in terms of what the federal and the state. Related to Vice Mayor Hill's comment, are you aware of any other cases that are going up to the Ninth Circuit in terms of challenging the codes right now?
I'm not aware of any other cases for sure. I know the state of New York has put forth a code statewide, and there's a lot of advocacy for the state to do it. But I also know that the ruling that this Ninth Circuit Court gave, I think they explicitly said no lower form of government, including state, could do that. So I'm not sure what's going on with New York's, but they passed it a few months ago. So.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Uranz Gulati.
Yes, thank you so much for the report and for looking into other jurisdictions as well. I guess, I don't know, forgive me if I missed it, but in all when you're getting like the different points, when you had to upgrade the electrical panel, which you need to do for many of these items, do you get any points for that?
The update of the electrical panel, I don't believe has any points. Do you remember, Dawn?
No, I don't believe it does.
I can look at that.
But if you're looking to upgrade the electrical panel, you might be adding something else to the system that we could give you points, like photovoltaics, which is a huge number. That by itself would satisfy even houses built before 1978.
Okay.
I'm not seeing that on there. I mean, this does encourage electrification. You get a lot of points for electrification, but of course that's every homeowner's choice, and they would look at the cost of, if your panel doesn't need to be upgraded, obviously it's a much easier choice. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Bushy.
No questions. I peppered Corey as part of the subcommittee process.
I just have a few questions. So, Dawn, thank you. This is exciting. And to Councilmember Kurtz's point, we go a little bit forward, we go a little bit back. So I appreciate you continuing to dig in on what we can do. So, Dawn, you had mentioned that for recent work, people can get points for that. Is there a specific time frame from when the work need to have been done? So let's say sealing ducts. Maybe they did it 5 years ago. I just wasn't sure if there was a timestamp on that.
So that's a good question, and we went back and forth on it a little bit. I think the spirit of what the state has given us and in the efficiency study looks like anything after 2010 we would accept. And so that almost gives them about 12 years or I guess, well, now 2014, 14 years of work that they've done prior that we could give them credit for it. So maybe they did a window upgrade in 2012. And while that window upgrade might not be dead on to what's required today, it's pretty close. And it's severely better than what was allowed before 1978. So we could look at giving them those 6 points.
Okay, that's great news. On some of them, they might not have had to have pulled a permit, for example, duct sealing. So do folks self-attest, or what's the procedure? I'm just curious about the granular part of that, if they've done work.
If they've done some sort of duct testing, they probably have a report from a HERS rater that said it's certified and it's meets the leakage. They can provide us that report and we can give them credit. If not, they can maybe go back to their contractor who did the work for them and they can provide us that record.
Okay, so there's not a big barrier there for folks to do that reporting if they've done the work.
Oh, and I guess if worse comes to worse, that if the contractor is no longer there, and they do not have a record, we can maybe look at it a couple ways. We might be able to do a visual inspection ourselves, or perhaps we can have them get a duct testing done, which sometimes is done free by different like PG&E for different programs. So they might be able to get their ducts reaffirmed that they're meet the leakage requirement and provide that to us.
Thank you. You had mentioned on one of the slides that San Anselmo and Fairfax and the county have adopted a similar. I'm just curious if the other jurisdictions are doing this. It seems to me the more consistency we have across the county, the easier it'll be for homeowners and contractors.
Right. There are, Corte Madera is bringing it forward next month, is my understanding. And I'm not sure where the other jurisdictions are at right now. I haven't checked in on them. I know that the Nevada Sustainability Commission wants to see this come forward, but I don't think that I've heard a date yet. Yeah.
Okay. No, it's great that all
One
jurisdictions. Oh, yeah, go
key
ahead.
thing too, though, it is the same process using the same point system, and all that is the county, Fairfax and San Anselmo. The one thing that we adjusted here was, again, to that point of, we want to do things that make an impact, is that we reduced it to 500 square feet. The county, Fairfax and San Anselmo have a 750 square foot threshold, but this gets more projects in the door and made a lot more sense. It's still a big project, right? And so the cost of compliance is a small percentage of the overall cost to get something meaningful done. So we got more projects through. So that's the one difference.
Okay. Thank you. I will turn to the public for comment. There might be more questions that come out, and at that point we'll answer them. So I'll open the public comment on the Green Building Code Amendment. Ms. Crisanti, go ahead.
Thanks. I just want to point out, if the whole goal is to reduce emissions, you're missing it by a mile. You can't electrify yourself out of this issue. You've got to reduce consumption. And nobody in Marin County wants to talk about that, least of all, a Chamber of Commerce friendly city council. I want to point out how hypocritical it is too, in light of the correspondence that I got from that Rachel Kurtz sent to the Board of Supervisors, and some of the correspondence that Colin sent to the Board of Supervisors, which I'm not getting from the county, which I'm not getting from San Rafael since they're blocking it. I want to point out that while you two ladies were arguing against a ceasefire in, the same month that some of these letters you sent to the Board of Supervisors went in, multiple newspapers, including The Guardian, were reporting, this is in January, the vast majority, over 99% of the 281,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide estimated to have been generated in the first 60 days following the October 7 Hamas attack can be attributed to Israel's aerial bombardment and ground invasion of Gaza, according to a first-of-its-kind study. Another report shows that greenhouse gas emissions from the first 60 days of the war are roughly the equivalent of 75 coal-fired power plants. Now you take that first 60 days, and then we're almost at 8 months now. 15,000 children blown to smithereens, people starving in Gaza. The correspondence that Kate Collin and Rachel Kurtz sent is obscene, arguing against a ceasefire, arguing for more pollution. You are complete hypocrites, and you're not clean on this either.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone like to comment on the Green Building Code?
Hypocrites! Hypocrites! Hypocrites!
Thank you for your comments. Your time is up. Welcome, Mr. Bishop.
It sounded like the trigger for much of these points to be awarded would be a remodel. I could probably gain 30 points without doing a remodel. Is that how that's correlated? I'll just leave that question.
Okay. Well, we'll collect questions and then we'll answer them after. Mr. Carney, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. We welcome the city's adoption of the enhanced standards for building renovations over 500 square feet that's proposed this evening. However, the rollback of building code prohibitions of gas in new and expanded buildings is a huge setback for the city's greenhouse gas emission reduction goals. As I think you all know, Gas furnaces, water heaters, and other appliances emit a quarter of San Rafael's climate pollution. Electrifying buildings with heat pump appliances eliminates these emissions and also prepares people for the air district's bans on gas water heaters and furnaces coming in 2027 and 2029, while also protecting residents from heat waves and smoke events. So we urge the following steps to get electrification back on track. First, increase the greenhouse gas reduction target for renovations to 25%, matching the amount of the continued use of gas emits. Secondly, track the code's reduction of greenhouse gas each year. It's been mentioned, but to do it every year to assure that reductions are being met, or how to improve the ordinance. Eliminate the catch-all exemption of gas appliances from the amended code, and apply the code to all ages of buildings, so more current ones as well, particularly for electrification. That could be a significant increase. And we don't think that exemption is something that's required by the law. It doesn't appear to be from the court ruling, by the court ruling. Work with the state and county to restore performance standards for new construction and to satisfy the legal fears that have been driving the rollback. So we urge your continued pursuit of zero emission buildings. Thanks very much.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else like to comment? Welcome, Mr. Batari.
Welcome back, Mayor Collin. I forget, I have to apologize. I was hiking all day today to get to clean up before I came in. Then I went home and I was exposed to gases I can't understand, and I'm a little stoned right now. So if I speak and slur, that is the reason. When I first heard about the gas electrification program, I was excited about it. But then as I read the news, PG&E seems to be a real problem for the state. The rates increase dramatically. They seem to be charging us for more and more things. So that just keeps coming up as a question, tying yourself to gas, electric, and having a large corporation like PG&E involved in delivering it just seems to be something that is going to cause us grief in the future. Not a question, it's a statement, an opinion. If you did want to include this electrification, it sounded like the point system was a way to do it, so to encourage people to do it, not to require them to do it. So changing the language from encouragement to a requirement might get you to be able to get new development to include these. Sorry, I'm losing my thread. Requirements to be put into place so that you could achieve the results you want to and reduce greenhouse gases and hopefully preserve our way of life for a longer period of time. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Not seeing anybody else, I will close the public comment and bring it back. So we had a couple questions. Mr. Bishop had a question about the remodel, and Mr. Kearney, actually, thank you. You had sent a letter prior, so maybe you could comment on some of the points that he made.
Sure.
It'd be great.
Yeah,
Thank
you can get a lot of points without having to do a remodel. The reason we applied this to larger remodels is because they actually come in for permits. And those smaller things, a lot of times they don't come into permits. Matter of fact, the Marin Builders Association estimates up to 80% permit avoidance for the smaller projects. So, you know, we think about putting things in place that we can't enforce, and, you know, we're always trying to do something that's meaningful.
I also had one thing on that, Corey.
Go ahead.
So this is for permitted work, right? So there's a lot of things you can do to your home that might be considered kind of like a remodel, painting, wallpapering, maybe replacing your floorings. Those do not require permits, and those would not be part of this type of remodel we're talking about. The type of remodel we're talking about is like maybe a room addition or addition onto the home, or maybe a alteration to the home where you're removing that wall between the kitchen and the living room, and you're reconfiguring the kitchen cabinets and getting a bigger, maybe great room space. or maybe converting that garage into different additional living spaces. These are kind of the type of remodels we're talking about. We're not targeting anybody that wanted to change the finishes in their home, like paint, wallpaper, or flooring.
Thank you. And then in terms of Bill Carney's comments, I think, again, we want to have things on the books that we can enforce. And I think this process actually encourages and demonstrates the benefits of this. The benefit of the negawatt, not, using energy, the focus on things like duct tests and blower tests to make sure you're not losing that energy. Also, we've been in conversation with a lot of the multifamily developers, and many of them are voluntarily going electric, right? They understand that's important. The state is no longer subsidizing the gas lines. They used to subsidize you getting new gas lines. They don't do that anymore. They stopped that about a year ago. And so the business case is stronger for electric as well. That piece about more current homes, this is all based on cost effectiveness studies, and there are not cost effectiveness studies that show any benefit for newer than 2010, and we have to tie it to the cost effectiveness study. So we're really not able to address those newer homes right now. And the last piece is, this is really to get the foot in the door. Let's start finally getting at existing buildings. That slide about how many existing buildings, single family residents we have, and how few are built over the decades. We have to get out our existing building stock if we're really going to get our greenhouse gas emissions for buildings. So we were very fortunate to have Stu Summers and Samina Saud from the Design Review Board and Planning Commission help us pick the target scores for this time, with the intention that, again, like Bill said, we can track this annually, and then over time we can actually increase those scores. If we find that so many people are getting points for things they've already done, then we can start looking at expanding those scores to try to get people to do more as well. So it's a way for us to get in, test it out, iterate over time, and make things better.
Thank you. I will turn to my colleagues for additional comments and then a motion. Vice Mayor Hill, additional comments.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Kate. Yes, and I'm going to borrow a phrase. This is my recollection back to something Bill Carney said many meetings ago about the sense of dismay at some of the things that we have to do in light of the federal ruling. I think it is regrettable that we have to back out of our previous ordinance. And then taking a huge step back, we look at I love that pie chart of where our metric tons of CO2 is coming from. And the vast majority is in transportation. And of course, the next is in our built environment. I do continue to be heartened at the kinds of strategic investments we make in our infrastructure to encourage more walkability, more cyclability, and safety in that regard, that people can make better choices on a daily basis to get from point A to point B, in how we reduce our footprint, how we consume. Of course, the built environment, the next priority is one that we hope we can make strides at. And I think we'll continue to look at every way that we can reduce our footprint. So thank you, Corey, and all staff and council members here who are continually looking at this. It does feel regrettable that we have to take a step back, but I continue to look at how we're able to make real change in our impacts. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kurtz.
Thank you. And thank you for the update. Adding this it's not little, it's a big step, but the gamification, I think is helpful for the community to actually understand what is needed, and understanding that their home, when it's built a long time ago, needs a lot more to bring it up. I think it's helpful to see that. So I really appreciate that. And I appreciate that San Rafael is leading the work in this space, and our commitment by having Corey and having Mr. Jepson and, sustainability in this, we've invested heavily in this area and we're trying to push it forward. And so I appreciate having the work that you've done to bring it back, because we also could make the decision to just step back and wait till it's all figured out and then follow. And we're not doing that. So I don't think this will be the last time that we're going to try to push something forward and maybe have to bring it back, but that's okay, because it's keeping us on that edge that we need to do and keep it moving it forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Now we have the subcommittee. I'll turn to Councilmember Bushy. Thank you both for being on the subcommittee.
You're absolutely welcome. Well, I guess I have a different perspective. I don't see this as a step back at all. I see this as a important step forward. And what I like most about it is that it encompasses choice. Our homeowners can choose what from the list, what they want to do, what means the most to them, how they want to move forward in this. And I also like the way that we've in this rigorous analysis, added, assigning those point values to that wide range of different things, just duct sealing, super simple. Just, and who can be against duct sealing? And you get your points for that, but that's an important way to achieve our greenhouse gas goals. There's not just one way to get to greenhouse gas reduction. And if we can do it sealing ducts, then let's seal those ducts. And a complicated and nuanced set of points is what does that. It allows people to choose, and it incorporates energy efficiency and electrification. Choose how you get there. We don't care how you reduce your greenhouse gases, just that it gets done. So I see this as a way forward that empowers our homeowners because everyone owns houses that were built before 2010, and because there hasn't been many built since then. So this applies to everyone. And gives them a chance to make their choices of how they want to reduce their greenhouse gases. So I think that is a step forward. It encompasses our goals and empowers our residents. So I'm very pleased to have worked with Councilmember Lange Gulati and Corey on and all the analysis that went into this. This was not an easy task to put this together in such a defensible way. So thank you for all the hard work, and I support the ordinance as brought forward.
Thank you, Councilmember Micah, and thank you for overseeing the Climate Change Action Plan quarterly meetings as well, where I know this has been discussed.
Yeah, one of my favorite things to do. I think climate change can use as much help as possible. And I just mentioned, I just learned in Florida that the governor has passed a new law that climate change doesn't exist. So I think we can do a lot here in California. I feel very lucky to have this team in San Rafael, Corey going through legal and all the political things that they are behind it. So I think it is good to have like different choices. And I think it is important to recognize that in San Rafael, we have a lot of different communities and how we can all work together towards, our goal, but also not penalizing homeowners that maybe they cannot afford to do the entire thing at once, or people that they live like in multi-use apartments. So yeah, I really want to recognize the effort, and I definitely support this and everything else that the city is working together. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just add, my colleagues made excellent comments about it being part of a system, the optionality of it. One thing I wanted to highlight and show appreciation for is the community part of this and the deep engagement that you and the team did. If you look at the staff report, there was a steering committee that went out and engaged with different staff at government agencies, community-based organizations, affordable housing, senior aging in place, equity priority advocates, building community, the list goes on and on. So I so appreciate the fact that you went out and had all of that synthesized in this. I mean, this can be rather dry, but it actually is, again, showing our values in terms of what can we do here in terms of reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and it's every piece counts. So thank you, Dawn, for zooming in and helping out with the presentation. Thank you, Corey. I will turn to my colleagues for a motion on this item, please. And the motion is to waive the further reading. So we'll have the city clerk read that.
I move that we waive further reading of the ordinance.
And I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Bushy.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hill.
Aye.
Councilmember Kurtz.
Aye.
Councilmember Yadens Galati.
Aye.
Mayor Kate.
Aye, that passes 5-0, and I request that you read the title of the ordinance or the whole ordinance?
The title of the ordinance.
Okay, how about it?
Thank you. An ordinance of the Centerville City Council amending Title 12 Building Regulations of the Centerville Municipal Code by amending the California Energy Code, the 2022 California Green Building Standards Code for electric vehicle chargers, the 2022 California Mechanical Code, and the 2022 California Plumbing Code, adding a new Chapter 12.360 with administrative and program regulations on model reach codes and adopting findings of fact supporting the amendments to the codes.
Thank you. Thank you for that item. Our next agenda item is the City Council FY 23-25 Goals and Objectives, Annual Update and Introduction of Infrastructure and Transportation Work Plan. Wait a moment while we switch over.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to start the
you.
presentation while my support system is getting the slides up because I have a few opening remarks. So there's going to be magical timing here. I wanted to start this this agenda item. It's hard to thank the city team for what they do every day, but when you go through the process of evaluating where you are, where we are with our goals and objectives, the body of work that's occurred, not just in goals and objectives, but in all the other maintenance and operations work that the city staff does. It's an incredibly impressive body of work. So I really want to start off with a genuine appreciation for the staff who are the ones that are getting all this incredible stuff done. We've had some unexpected challenges and constraints this past year. We do every year. I think there's unexpected things that happen every year. But I wanted to highlight a few that I think are meaningful and important to kind of put into context. Like even with these challenges and constraints, we still were able to accomplish the incredible amount of these 2-year goals and objectives. One thing to note is that we still are really, believe it or not, recovering from COVID as it relates to an organization and a workplace. That the adjustment to the Great Resignation, that the world of work changing in ways that we could not have imagined, more remote options, people changing jobs more often demographically, not staying in public sector jobs for 10 or 20 years like they used to. These are all impacting our ability to deliver services and achieve our goals and objectives. We have experienced since 2021 some really significant vacancy rates and attrition. And that does have an impact. It is harder to recruit and retain in any business, and that's including the public sector. So in your packet, there is an attachment that gives a status update on every single objective in the entire 2023-25 2-year goals and objectives. I am not going to read all of that to you. I know that you're exceptionally good at reading these packets, but I do feel like it's important to highlight a few of them tonight, just to acknowledge, and afterwards, if there's questions about things that were in your packet that I didn't mention, there'll be time for that. I did want to offer a special appreciation to Bernadette, to Vedika, to the department director team, and the assistant city managers who really did all the heavy lifting behind the content and bringing this forward tonight. So thanks to all of you for making us look so amazing. Okay, and thank you. See, it was magical timing. So just as a reminder, how our goals and objectives, the city council's goals and objectives are, the framework and the organization of them is we have 5 main goal areas: neighborhood and economic vitality, quality of life, public safety, foundational services, and public assets. So those are the 5 main buckets, if you will, of our goals and objectives. So I'm going to highlight a few of those 5. In neighborhood and economic vitality, we've received a $1.6 million grant for community outreach and establishing a canal, neighborhood, and Northgate priority development area plans. This is a really exciting project that has a nexus to Mayor Kate's fellowship program at the Harvard School of Design, which we'll hear more about in an upcoming council meeting. SRFA project will begin first, and we're working on procuring a consultant for the second quarter of 2024. And the Northgate plan is anticipated to begin in 2026. We're also in the process, the end of 2024, working with a consultant to evaluate the city's affordable housing policies to address the by right neighborhood affordable housing overlay zone. Another parking, everybody loves parking. It is an exciting and challenging area. So we are in the process. This past February, we hired Dixon Unlimited to develop a residential parking permit program, which has been a long discussion in the community for many years. That is starting in East San Rafael, but the design of the program would be to address potentially all neighborhoods across the city. That will be coming forward for council consideration in early 2025. Between now and then, there'll be lots of community engagement, talking about what that program might look like. Under quality of life, we have some exciting news, another long-term project that we've been trying to achieve funding for. So securing a $4.2 million grant from the National Park Service to address pickleweed and to see these sorts of improvements to this asset in the community is really, really exciting. The turf field, I think we've been talking about since I got here almost 9 years ago. And then so the construction will begin in the latter part of 24 with hopefully completion by the summer of 2026. Public safety, the SAFE team was established this year. The statistics are incredible. We've talked about that in a recent council meeting, but I think it's worth repeating. They've responded to over 3,000 calls, diverted 113 individuals from emergency departments and 125 from jail. And this is a year, right? A year and a handful. The other highlight for the police department is we had a goal to improve the service to the community to reduce response times for priority 1 calls. So that objective has been completely met down to 5 minutes from 7 minutes. So that's a huge accomplishment. And I think the nexus with the SAFE team is part of how we've been able to meet that objective. A little more on public safety. We spent a lot of time this year doing deep community engagement work. And there's work that the police department is doing ongoing, but in addition to that, they continue to do Coffee with a Cop. There's a community academy, Camp Chance, which is an incredible program, and then the Police Advisory and Accountability Committee, which was established in June of last year to enhance public transparency and accountability, and that group is going strong. Under public assets, there's so much to list here that I don't even know where to begin, but you're going to hear a lot of cool stuff from April in a few minutes, so I don't want to steal her thunder. The council adopted the Marin County Local Road Safety Plan, which is kind of our first major foray toward a Vision Zero goals of eliminating traffic fatalities. So that adoption of that plan will now move into a strategic Vision Zero plan in this coming fiscal year will be the next step in that process. Public assets. So the LiDAR survey of city-owned assets is something we've talked about for many years, and it's really, really important to have this baseline data to understand what our inventory is and try to develop maintenance, longer-term maintenance and strategic planning efforts to identify what funding do we need to keep these assets up and what sort of cycles can we put together and procedures. And that's the focus for the next fiscal year. Foundational services, which is really kind of the core foundation of our city team. They do a lot to support service delivery. This is a focus on communications. There's a real need to keep the community updated. So the communications and website team has been working on kind of upgrading our communications to put out more FAQs for high priority projects or big issues like homelessness. We've reestablished the homelessness newsletter once a month. And then these pages also have a subscribe button so that if you want an automatic update and you're really interested in a topic or a project, anytime there's new content, you'll get an email and you'll get that update. A little more on the foundational services. We had a goal to evaluate revenue alternatives and seek grant funding, which has been remarkably successful 17 million in grant funding just this last fiscal year. And you can read those numbers. They're incredibly impressive and are really augmenting and adding our ability to achieve more. Policy focus areas. So we have the City Council sets their, another part of the framework for goals and objectives is these key policy focus areas of economic growth, housing and homelessness, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and then sustainability, climate change, and disaster preparedness. On economic growth, the economic development team, the GO program is being launched in the second quarter, upcoming here in 2024. And that's a new program that will include marketing and branding materials. And we're calling it a business expansion, attraction, retention program. What it really means is kind of a one-stop shop. If you want to set up a new business or have that interface with the city, we're trying to make the process really easy and accessible and supportive. An enhanced infrastructure financing district is something that the Economic Development Strategic Plan identified as something we should consider. So we are working with COSMA on developing a feasibility analysis on what that might look like for the city and what benefits it could bring. And then also a feasibility study this coming year for a property and business improvement district as well. A little bit here on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. This is a photo of the PAC members being sworn in this past June. So I'll keep going here. Inclusive resident engagement practices. We've done a lot in this space in the last couple of years, and I think it's important to highlight bilingual meetings, community meetings we're holding in Spanish with English interpretations to support the community in speaking it in their native language, which when it's particularly challenging topics is really important. The PAC is the first commission meeting that has Spanish interpretation at every meeting for to support the members that are on the committee as well as engagement with the community. We're working on developing a language access plan this year and more on the PAC. Oh, the materials are also being translated both into Spanish and Vietnamese for the PAC. The police department has made some really significant efforts in developing a new recruitment and selection plan this past year, which is really focused on targeting and enhancing diversity of the workforce. So over the last year, of the 20 new employee recruits, 8 identified as female, 12 identified as Hispanic, which brings the percentage, 42% of the police department employees are identifying as a person of color today. Housing and homelessness has been a very big topic this year. Just worth mentioning the County of Marin and, oh, apologies, let me go back. This year, we did evaluate potential citywide tenant protections and adopted an urgency ordinance on April 15th of this year that prohibits substantial rehab as just cause for eviction and establishes temporary relocation assistance for tenants. We're also looking at funding the affordable housing rehab projects that Councilmember Kurtz was talking about under the CDBG grant. So those are all affordable housing projects that the city allocated funds to in this past year. Housing and homelessness. So the County of Marin and city staff collaborated on an encampment resolution fund, which resulted in a $6 million grant that we just received that the staff is collaborating and working diligently to develop what is the plan? How are we going to spend this money and how is this going to improve the circumstances? The grant is written somewhat broadly to allow it to support new interim housing, expanded case management, increased service provision for individuals experiencing homelessness, particularly at the Mahone Creek Path encampment. Sustainability, climate change, and disaster preparedness. This past year, we updated the countywide local hazard mitigation plan, and the sustainability team is working on a comprehensive project to develop a sea level rise adaptation and resilience plan. There's a ton of amazing community engagement happening with that project as well. A little more on sustainability. We've updated the emergency operations plan and developed updated EOC handbooks and a storm response playbook. We continue to train staff with the attrition and the turnover to make sure that all of our staff are prepared to be disaster service workers and activate the Emergency Operations Center if needed. Staff have increased Spanish language disaster preparedness outreach, including offering both classes and print materials in Spanish and developing a peer-to-peer outreach program. And I'm going to transition for a minute over to Vedika, who's going to come up and talk a little bit about our performance measurement program update. Thank you.
That's Christine.
Thank you.
All for having me.
Oh, green button.
Thanks, Christine, and thank you all for having me. Last year, we launched the performance measurement program. Last year, we chose 15 metrics to measure progress towards the city's big picture policy areas. And since last year, we've added targets for some of those strategic metrics. We've updated some of the metrics, and we've added metrics to measure the city's operational work. And over the next year, we plan to integrate the metrics in this process into the process of picking our new goals and objectives. And we'll add metrics to quantify efficiency, effectiveness, and quality of various city programs. And we'll start operationalizing or continue operationalizing these performance management metrics. So with that, I will open up this dashboard, which went live today with the new data. Sorry about that. I got it. Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, we'll dive in. We went through so this dashboard is live, it's public. So we went through an extensive review of this last year. So I will just touch on some of the key metrics and then some of the operational metrics that we added this year. So in economic growth, we'll talk about vacancy rate and foot traffic downtown. In addition, in the next year, we'll be working closely with the economic development team to measure some of the performance metrics called out in the economic development strategic plan. In terms of vacancy rates, industrial and retail vacancy rates remain low, though industrial vacancy did increase from 1.3% to 3.6%, so about almost tripled in the last year. Office vacancy has continued to rise since 2017. We expect in the long term for that to reduce as office space gets converted to housing or multi-use purposes. In terms of foot traffic, in 2023, for the first time, average foot traffic in the year reached or exceeded pre-pandemic levels from visitors and overall. Visits by employees is still 10% lower than it was pre-pandemic. But 2024 data is showing positive trends with both visits by visitors to the downtown area and visits by employees to the downtown area up by 6% compared to 2019. And all this data is coming from Placer AI. So it's coming from cell phone data, anonymized cell phone data that Placer AI uses to estimate total visits to specific geographic areas. We're also planning, and we've started using this data to measure the impact of special events in San Rafael. We'll now jump to our workforce diversity data. Here you can see our workforce diversity data. This specifically shows the diversity of regular employees, so not including temp and seasonal employees in San Rafael. You can see in this top chart that the gender breakdown, the percent of women has remained at about 40% since 2012 in the city. And this is largely driven by the fact that in public safety, about 74% of our workforce identify as men. In this bottom chart, you can see that the workforce, the percentage of people who identify as people of color has increased by 10 percentage points over the last 10 years and by 2% and 2 percentage points in the last year from 35% to more than 37%. From there, we're going to jump to greenhouse gas emissions. This shows that greenhouse gas emissions has continued to decline. Our latest data is in 2021 currently, though Corey will be giving a presentation or will be presenting the newer data soon. 2021 data is showing that our emissions are 20% below 1990 levels, and the target here is to decrease emissions by 40% of 1990 levels by 2030. Okay, and from here, we'll touch on housing and homelessness. So Christine gave a great overview of this earlier, and I know it's been discussed a lot. Our metric here is the number of participants in the city's 2 grant-funded programs, the Encampment Resolution Case Management Program and the High Utilizer Program, that have been housed and also that are in steps to get to housing. So currently 20 out of the 34 participants in these 2 programs have been housed, and 9 people of those 20 were housed since April 2023. And, over the next year, this client pool will be expanding with the city and county's joint ERF3 award. And the goal listed in our grant, the ERF3 application, is for 46 of the 65 case management clients to gain and remain in permanent housing and 65 new interim housing units created through a variety of interim sites and strategies. Okay, so from there, we'll jump to some of the operational metrics that we added this year to better quantify the operational work that the city departments are doing. So we will start with crime rates. So this page specifically shows crimes defined as Group A offenses by the FBI's reporting system. Group A offenses include certain serious crimes against people, property, and society. You can see on this bottom graph here that the most common Group A offenses reported in San Rafael are crimes against property, including larceny and theft, motor vehicle theft, and destruction of property. Crimes reported in most categories in San Rafael have decreased significantly. Total crimes have decreased by 11.6%. And you can see here, all these categories have decreased. The one exception here is that simple assault has increased slightly in 2022 compared to 23. The reason we're showing just 2 years of data is because the FBI has changed their reporting system, and we've chosen to go with the newest reporting system, and we'll be continuing to be able to compare this data to future data. And this is a significant improvement in the reporting system. Okay, we'll go to police department calls for service and response time. Again, as Christine mentioned, response time to priority 1 calls by the police department has declined from 7 minutes in 2022 to 5 minutes in 23, reaching the target set last year. And all of this is happening as calls for service overall have increased, really being driven by an increase in the number of public initiated calls for service. The response time to priority 2 and priority 3 calls have increased slightly over the last year. I'll skip that one and we'll go to see-click fix requests. So this page is showing the number of requests that residents either online submit to see-click fix. There are most often maintenance requests that DPW our Department of Public Works responds to, or they can call into our offices and staff can input their complaint or their request into see-click fix. So you can see here that over time, since 2022, the number of requests per month coming in has increased. And the most common types of requests submitted are for illegal dumping, pothole and road conditions, storm drainage, and trees and parks. Last year, last year, residents have submitted 2,707 requests. And that means that the Department of Public Works is on average handling about 225 requests per month. This shows permits issued by year by the Community Development Department, Fire Department, and Code Enforcement. And I'd like to mention that this graph has been corrected since the publication of the staff report. So the staff report did not include online permits issued by Community Development in 2020 and 2021 due to a change in data tracking during that year. So this actually shows a different trend than the staff report. What this is showing us is that issued permits actually stayed pretty consistent over the time of the pandemic and has increased slightly since 2021 and 22 and 23. Decreased slightly since 2021. And that in part is due to, probably in part due to the economic conditions, inflation and high interest rates in the last couple of years. And the reason that it looks like there's a steep drop between 2018 and 2019 is because of the change in process. Building permits were streamlined, and so less permits needed to be applied for the same project. Lastly, here we have code enforcement cases. You can see here that this did decline significantly during the pandemic and is now code enforcement cases open and handled by the code enforcement team has now almost reached pre-pandemic levels, about 10% less still than 2019. Okay, and with that, that's all I have to share with the dashboard. I also mentioned, Don mentioned this earlier too, that now that the city is transitioning to a new permit software, we'll be able to track permits and code enforcement cases much more closely, do a deeper dive analysis, and do more real-time reporting for staff and for the public. I'll stop sharing here and yes, thank you. In conclusion, the data program will continue working with our departments, do a deeper dive analysis, operationalize this work, and we'll come back next year with new and updated metrics. Thank you. Yeah.
I'm going to make some opening comments before I turn it over to April and Joanna on this section of the presentation. This past year, we decided to reevaluate the process for tracking our progress towards goals and objectives. And so we're trying something new. We are working with a firm called Jacob Green and Associates that works exclusively with government agencies and has worked with many cities across California to develop similar work planning tools. So I kind of want to introduce the why are we doing this, what's the purpose, and frame that up before the presentation. What we're hoping to improve with this work planning process is three main things. One is better alignment with budget, having budget and our goals and objectives be more closely in alignment, and having the very explicit alignment with the community and the council on priorities moving forward. Secondly, more transparency in tracking our progress, and which also helps the community hold us accountable and the council accountable for us achieving these goals and objectives. And then it also serves as a prioritization tool. So I spoke earlier about in our business of govern, we always have new and emerging community needs and issues. And some of them are things that we can plan for and some of them we can't. So for every project we add, we have a certain amount of funding and staff resources and capacity to deliver those. So the concept here is to develop a work planning tool that as new emerging priorities arise, we can bring up the work plan and identify what's going to push either in time to make space for a new priority and make sure there is, again, alignment with that as things come up throughout the year. A couple of examples of that over this past year that have significantly impacted staff's ability to stay focused on our goals and objectives are we've been embroiled in a lawsuit around homelessness for over a year, and that wasn't the plan. So it is, and the amount of time and energy it takes to work through that process does impact how much we can accomplish. The other couple of things, and they're a little bit smaller, but there's still context for how new priorities come up, is the urgency ordinance for anti-displacement. There was a real call from the community for us to address something in a very urgent manner. And so in the process of evaluating the housing element and other tenant protection programs, we pivoted to make space and time to address that urgent need from the community. And then also illegal hemp code enforcement is another area of that we had not planned, but has required some significant resources, both from the code enforcement team. And all of these require a lot of legal review, as well as I'm thinking about Assistant City Attorney Genevieve over here. And the complexities of our world and our work are continuously changing and needing more and more legal support. So just a little bit more context. The name of this work plan is not, you'll see, it's not the Public Works work plan. It's the Infrastructure and Capital and Transportation work plan. It's a draft. We're bringing it to you as a draft tonight because April and her team bravely have been piloting this new process. It's not the Public Works plan because it includes sustainability. It includes library rec. So there's cross-departmental projects and there's cross-goal projects. So you'll see April's going to present things about where those different goals are feeding into this work plan. It's not a work plan for goal A or a department. There's an integration happening. I think it is coincidental, but I think it's very appropriate that it's Public Works Week and acknowledging this incredible team. And I'm excited for April and her team. I do want to appreciate April, Joanna, Jonathan, and Ryan, and the other staff who've worked on this behind the scenes. They've spent many, many hours refining it and making it presentable to the community in a way that's not government speak and is not technocrat. So we'll receive any feedback you have for tonight. The next step in this would be to bring it back along with budget at the next council meeting on June 3rd for a formal adoption by the council. So tonight is an opportunity to preview and receive feedback. So without further ado.
Yeah, thank you, Christine. April Miller, Director of Public Works. Thank you for having us here tonight. I also have Joanna Kwok, who's our Assistant Director and City Engineer. And in the audience, we have Jonathan Schellen, who's our Deputy Director of Administrative Services, who could help with answering questions. So we wanted to start out tonight's presentation showing our organization chart and how many employees there are at Public Works. Although this isn't Public Works specific, this work plan, it takes everybody in Public Works in order to accomplish everything that's within this work plan. There was a lot of self-reflection over the last 6 months on what we do. In our heads, we know what we do, but just trying to articulate that to others, it was a challenge, but, I couldn't have done it without, the managers that were mentioned by Christine, but also all of our Public Works supervisors and teams, some of which are in the audience today, and just the hard work that they do every day that is comprised in this work plan. So some of the things we're going to go over today is our different annual programs. These align with the budget discussion that is going to happen at the next meeting. So that's why these names we're not specifically talking about a certain division, but the names are like facility maintenance program. So there's going to be funding associated with that, which you'll see tie in at the next two council meetings. but that's why we have the different titles and programming. So these are all related to different funding. I'm going to go over each of these and different things that our divisions do. So something that's actually not in the previous slide with different operation programs is one of our core divisions, which is the Public Works Administration division. We couldn't do what we do without them. You know, they do a lot of different things, including what was talked about by Betica earlier, our C-Click Fix, supporting the entire department on not only phone calls and walk-ins and emails inputting into this program, but helping us, everybody else in the department stay on top of different requests that come in. We're also working on a new contract process to help expedite that. We do, and you see the stats here with all of our purchasing and invoices, budget. We have our own little HR stuff that we do. And then there's also some other things related to other goals and objectives like the street tree ordinance, our street tree inventory, dredging. So there's other things that come up that aren't necessarily in the current goals and objectives, but are things that have come up in past goals and objectives that our administration team takes the lead on. They're also the lead department in the asset inventory and strategic management plan, which is part of the work plan you'll see later, and then also are key in the green fleet management. So first, we're going to start with our facilities maintenance program. These are alphabetized. I'm not picking my favorite to go first or anything, but they're alphabetized in case anybody's wondering. And so our facility maintenance team has 1 supervisor and 2 maintenance workers, and they maintain 42 city buildings and facilities. And so there's tons of work orders that happen associated with it. And then we have old infrastructure, old buildings. And so there's a lot of different tasks that this team does. In addition, they recently took on the pump stations. So they work closely with our streets division on maintaining those, but they really are facilities and structures. So they moved over into our facilities team. A couple of the tasks related to their goals, which are in the work plan, are the citywide building and facilities plan. This plan is going to be critical for us to figure out what we need to do with all of these 42 buildings. How do we maintain them? What's a good maintenance plan moving forward? And kind of what is our deferred maintenance? So that's in our work plan you'll see coming up. And then they also assist with the green fleet infrastructure, because building the right infrastructure in order to have a green fleet we need that in place. So that's one of the things that's holding up our transition to green fleet. We also have our fleet management program. There's also 1 supervisor and 2 maintenance workers. They maintain over 300 vehicles and pieces of equipment. So all of the police vehicles, all the other city vehicles, they assist with some of the fire vehicles, but there is a separate fire mechanic. And these are just some stats on how many work orders they do every year. And this is the team right here in the photo. We got a photo of all of them. And they're also critical with our green fleet and trying to figure out how we can meet the city council's goals to move towards a green fleet. Next, we have Parks and Landscape Maintenance Program. So there are 13 people in the Parks Division. So there's 2 supervisors, 2 leads, and 10 maintenance workers. And so these are stats. We shared this with the City Council last year, but 25 parks, tons of roadside ditches, medians, the pool, tree maintenance is a very huge item that our team works on. They also do all of the grounds adjacent to all of those facilities mentioned previously. And they're key with us different assessment districts, which will also come to the City Council in the next few meetings. So they help with doing the project management of some of the assessment districts, as well as doing some of the maintenance themselves. Here's the street maintenance. So the street maintenance is actually their budget overlaps between 2 of the annual programs, both the minor street repairs and also the stormwater system maintenance, because this group does both the roads and the storm drains, which is related because there's a lot of storm drain catch basins in the streets. And one thing just to point out is that there's 5,000 stormwater catch basins that our team inspects and cleans every single year. So in order to get that done, our streets team is joined with our parks team. So between October and December, the 2 of them work together in order to clean all of those to help prevent flooding in the city. I'm going to turn it over to Joanna.
Thank you for having me here tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit about our Permit and Technical Assistance Program, which is managed by our Land Development and Permitting team. We've got 3 engineers and 1 inspector. And with this team, we conduct over 3,000 plus inspections annually in the right-of-way. We perform development projects, mapping, and other survey-related reviews. And we process or assist in processing over 1,100 permits annually and support open counter hours with public or applicants that might have questions for us. Our Regional Partnership and Project Assistance Program really is supported by all of Public Works and even other departments. And this is a program where we're coordinating and participating in decision-making process with other agencies on various initiatives and projects. And a few of these are even within our city adopted Goal D. That includes the 101, 580 multimodal and local access improvements, the San Rafael Transit Center relocation, and Vision Zero action plan. These are several more programs that the engineering team helps manage and oversee, and they're color-coded based on the involved divisions, traffic, capital, and combination of traffic and capital team. These programs involve low to medium level of effort in infrastructure maintenance and may be lower cost individually, but has a really high impact on our city. And a couple examples of that is installation of, rectangular rapid flashing beacons to provide better pedestrian crossing facilities. We also did some sidewalk repair and replacement over by Freitas Parkway, I think in fiscal year 23. And just end of last year around fall, we completed the North San Rafael pavement maintenance project. Besides the projects and programs that we just briefly talked about, there's also a bunch of routine duties that the engineering team conducts on a daily basis, which really means that we have a little bit less than 50% capacity to kind of allocate towards the projects and programs. And one thing I forgot to mention is the programs that I've listed here, we'll be talking about them in future meetings. So we'll dive into a little bit more detail in June. And then this Gantt chart is our attempt in providing a visual representation of the engineering team's staffing levels over the last 2 years. The red represents 0, so vacant, and green means we were staffed 100% for that particular position, and everything in between is, everything else in between. Orange is about 25 to 50%. As you can see from this chart over the last 2 years, there hasn't really been a point in time when we were fully staffed, and we were using the resources that we have to kind of continue providing the services to the city in the best possible way. And we're currently going through recruitment efforts, and I think we're pretty optimistic in getting to 100% staffed at some point. And with that assumption, I'm going to turn over to Director Miller for our Infrastructure and Transportation Work Plan.
Yeah, thank you. Just for some real numbers that we looked at today. So out of the 55 full-time employees, we have 4 vacancies right now, so about 7%. During that chart at different points in the year, that was definitely significantly higher than that, including at one point, 3 out of 13 of our parks maintenance workers were unfilled. So it's a pretty high percentage in certain divisions. Okay, so as far as the infrastructure and transportation work plan, there's just a few assumptions we're throwing out there before we dive into it. So we're assuming engineering staff is fully staffed at the start of the fiscal year. We had to make some sort of assumption. We know that according to the chart that Joanna just showed, that that's not necessarily the case throughout the year. But over the last 6 months, we've really put into place, if we're not fully staffed, then what? So we've been looking at setting up on-calls with consultants to do some staff augmentation while we're hiring somebody new before they can come on to try to keep those projects moving. Or if there's some different grant one-time projects, getting additional support from consultants to help us manage those projects because it's one-time funding. It's really hard for us to staff up for a project that's only going to last 2 years. So just note that, consultants do reduce staff time, but it still takes staff time to manage consultants. So it's not one-to-one. The work plan does fluctuate, like during emergencies. I know at one point, I think it was a year and a half ago when we had the really bad storms, with different leaves that were going on and different vacancies. At one point, there was only 2 engineers to help out with the storms when there were slides and stuff out of 15. So it just, there is times where things don't align properly. So, and then there's also unplanned and unexpected projects and priorities that just happen. So the plan is to adjust this work plan as needed quarterly. And then this work plan is currently aligned with the budget. And something that's not on here that I wanted to bring up is that we did remove a handful of projects from our initial iteration in order to really think about our staffing capacity and whether or not we can do it. If we get to a point during this year, we budgeted for those projects, so we could always pull projects forward and do them sooner if we have that capacity. So we built that flexibility into our budget. So I'm going to now share the draft work plan. Okay. So this is our draft work plan. What was attached in the staff report was some more background details that it took us to get to this point because we didn't have a prettier draft available with all of our Gantt charts. So yeah, Christine already went over some of the intros and stuff. So the one thing I want to point out in this, besides that there's abbreviations, I know we hate abbreviations and acronyms, but there will be a chart that you'll get to see what all of those are, and I'll explain them if needed. But I want to focus on the key on the right, so the different colors. So they are tied into the goals and objectives. So there's the focus areas, there's goal D, there's goal B, and then there's other projects and programs. And then just to note that the little arrow, like if it's ended, if it's a flat line, that means it's done. If there's an arrow, it means it's going to continue into a new fiscal year. And as I kind of mentioned earlier, but the note, these are definitely approximate timelines. So we're going to reevaluate quarterly and see how this goes. But we're excited to see how this evolves between now and next time's goals and objectives. Okay, so it's probably hard to read, but this is everything that's in the work plan. So we have 28 things listed for, this actually starts in January, so quarter 3. I guess I should also clarify that the goals and objectives presentation earlier was doing quarters on an annual basis, or a calendar basis, and this is actually on a fiscal year basis. So the quarters aren't going to match based on what you heard earlier today. So this is everything that we have, and I'm going to just flip through them. I'll highlight a few of the key ones. Also to note, like I said, with the order from earlier on the different teams. So this is ordered based on, we've kind of some citywide larger planning things. And then this is going to follow the budget. So we have facilities, recreation, storm, and transportation. So it's not obvious, but that's how they're organized. And that when you see the work plan later and when you see the budget later, you'll understand why we've ordered them that way. Okay, so here's our first example. So we've talked about the asset inventory and strategic management. Jonathan, our deputy director, has been working really hard getting procuring software and working with Vedica and the digital team on getting a software to help us manage all of the assets, because we've gathered all this inventory and now we need to be able to manipulate it, figure out what else we need, be able to work with the community. Like, for example, with the tree group, be able to work with the community on, do we have the data we need? Do we need help getting more data and being able to input that? So really being able to manipulate all of that amazing data that we have. So this is just kind of some of the stuff that's going to be going forward. We have the software rollout, community engagement, eventually system integration, So a lot of things going on over the next year related to our core assets. The next several things are all of our citywide plans. So we have our bicycle and pedestrian plan, our building facility plan, our storm drain plan. Those are all big planning documents that we need to be able to help manage all of our, not only all of our assets, but all of our funding and figure out how can we be strategic on this. As part of that, kind of related, is that one of the big things we want to do is look at how the capital improvement program, like how do we do the rankings? How does it relate to our goals and objectives and work plan? And really figure out, it's been in place now for 4 years. It's time to look at it again. Like, how does it meet our current citywide goals? So we're going to be doing that over the next year. We're going to start pretty soon into the fiscal year because it's going to take a good amount of work to look at all of that. These are, so orange, new color. So this is led by the sustainability group. And so this is sea level rise feasibility assessment. Public Works assists with those meetings and works collaboratively with the sustainability team. This just mentioned really fast, a couple months ago, the city council adopted the local road safety plan. And so we've outlined kind of what are our next steps and what does that mean with the Vision Zero action plan. This includes something we're working with the county on, is doing a joint application for Safe Streets for All in order to fund a Vision Zero action plan. And so we're working with them right now on this joint application. So hopefully we hear good news and can start with working on that. Next up, we have some of our facilities. So we have some work over at AJ Borough, including the childcare portable. And then we're fortunate enough, the city, to get a couple grants on the libraries. So we put those into our work plan and figured out how to get those projects done. And as you can see, we've just kind of outlined, there's more detail in the staff report, but we've listed kind of where we think planning is going to happen, where we think design is going to happen, construction. A lot of different things vary with construction. I mean, it could be the bid results could change things, staff capacity could change things. So we'll kind of see. This is our optimistic goal for these. And then we're going to move into parks. So the Park and Recreation Committee recently approved the Measure A work plan. So the next couple are what was in that work plan. So Peacock Gap, Pickleweed. Those are the few that are in there this year. Then we're going to move into storm drain projects. We're finally doing B Street Culvert. There's also, and then these are some of our annual programs, our corrugated metal pipe replacement. We set aside money each year because we have a lot of really old pipes. And so this is to help replace those. San Quentin will hopefully be done in the next fiscal year. And then something to note, so 20 is 5 different projects, but we just lumped them into one. So as part of a state mandate, we have to add trash capture devices on all of our storm drains by 2030. So we've been working really closely with Mixed Up, which is Marin countywide. I'm going to tell you what the acronym is, but Stormwater Pollution Prevention Program. So they've been working with Caltrans on funding to help fund those projects because it's one of those, state mandates not funded, but thankfully Caltrans has a pot of money. And so we're working with them on trying to get those projects funded. Next up, we're into the transportation category. So first on the list is the Canal Active Transportation Experience Project. So that was an ATP grant we received last year, and we're just getting going on that. And so we don't have construction funding until 2027. So it's been a little bit later start because that's just how the funding has been awarded. So that will start soon. A few more projects that we have going on, grant funded, that are continuing. And then these are some of our annual programs. And then I guess to close out, so these are a couple of our grant funded projects. So the Lincoln Avenue Safety Improvement was a highway safety improvement grant that we received about just over a year ago. And so that's 2 intersections on Lincoln Avenue. So we're planning on getting started with that soon, as well as the the last one on here, we recently received the Reconnecting Communities grant for the South Marydale Road Civic Center project. So we're hoping to get that one started up next fiscal year. So that was a lot. So we're here for any questions that you have.
Thank you. That was a lot and incredible. We'll just take a moment to keep absorbing all that information. I'm sure that my colleagues have questions on any part of the presentation. So I'll just open it up on anything you've heard to ask staff, and I'll start with Vice Mayor Hill, and we might wander around because there was a lot of information presented. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Kate, and thank you all, not just Director Miller, but Joanna and Vedika for presenting. And actually, Vedika, I had a question for you. Can you? Okay. So it's a broad question on any specific one of the performance metrics. Since you've been here for, we'll call this, went through the iteration last year, which I think was a pretty heavy lift, and then iterating into this year. What has that been like? We'll say going into year 2 of developing the dashboards and relying on data. Just as a general characterization, how has that been between year 1 and year 2?
Thank you for the question. So the first year it was a heavy lift. The second, what's great is that with Sherman, the data engineer, and I together, we are building out pipelines from the databases into the dashboard. And so we don't have to repeat the work necessarily to update this dashboard. So the heavier lift this time was getting the operational metrics on the dashboard. And that also allowed us to lay a foundation of diving deeper into those metrics. So I'm kind of thinking as each step is building a foundation for deeper analysis and being able to operationalize this analysis for more real-time day-to-day decision-making for staff. So I would say, yeah, we're really building the foundation to dive deeper throughout the year. And all of this it provides a baseline for staff and for departments and for the data team.
And then as I was watching it unfold, I noticed, and there were I had many questions about root cause for trend. And is it in the purview eventually to say, we're going to start looking at it and interpret root cause of some of it? I'm not going to ask you to do it here, but what is the next step to say, because I can tell my own stories, and I imagine the public and the community can tell their own stories when they see something. What is the next step to start describing root cause?
I think to be able to really definitively draw causal relationships between our work and the outputs will take some more quasi experiments or experiments around our programs and our implementation. So I would say that there are certain programs in the city that are close to being able to do that. But generally, for most of these metrics, it will take some time to be able to draw causal relationships between what the city is doing and the outcome, especially for these big economic indicators.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I have a couple of questions for the work plans team. So
don't go too far, Vedika. I'm sure there's more questions.
Actually, I didn't have any questions. I had comments for after. So thank you.
Okay. We'll have you hold your comments. I'm going to go this way first.
Thank you.
Oh, you're going to go that way. Councilmember Kurtz, go ahead.
Sorry.
That's okay.
You were looking and then
I was. Go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks. Great update as always. I guess my question is, I was in looking at the report that was provided. It was a little hard to see what's up there on the screen, but the report that was provided, you have in progress for FY25 and you have upcoming, and then some of them, I'm just looking at the ones for FY25. Can you just give a little bit more context in terms of what's upcoming? And if you, in the sort of the embedded question there is, that's not that far off. If it's really end of FY25, if I got my dates right, it's March, end of March, right? End of March 2025.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I just want to make sure that we're being realistic in terms of what we have there.
Yeah, so upcoming means that we just haven't started to date. So the work plan is over 18 months. It started in January. We just haven't started yet, but we anticipate and we're hopeful that we will start it. Whether we finish it, we'll see how things go. But I mean, we're optimistic that we'll start everything that we said we would, or all the projects we said we would start.
Can I just add a little bit to that, April? April mentioned this in the beginning, and we'll get you a copy of the work plan. We'll share that and put it up on the website so you can see. But the way those Gantt charts, those bars, they're phases, and they're by quarter deliberately to provide the team the flexibility that, you know, an RFP, a procurement process is scheduled for 1 quarter. It might happen the first month of the quarter. It might happen the 3rd month of the quarter, you know, to bake in that kind of flexibility because it is long-term planning. And April also mentioned that the approach to these work plans would be like, we would revisit it at mid-year. And, you know, your question about, is this realistic? We are gung-ho and aspirational, and we want to get a lot done. And that's and to your point, reevaluating it and where are we, and has there been a new emerging priority? And then we need to make some adjustments to this. So we're going to set our targets for what we think we can accomplish and begin. It doesn't mean those things are going to get completed in that time period.
And the follow-on, thank you. That's helpful. And the follow-on question to that is, everything for FY25 already funded for at least what we want to accomplish for FY25?
I guess you'll let us know on June 3rd.
Okay.
Or 17th. But yes, I mean, a lot of it's grant funded. A lot of it's funding that we set aside for this last fiscal year, but ultimately the budget's not approved yet. So.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Councilmember Bushy.
Thank you. Love the report, love all the details. I want to take you both to a different place, though. I want to talk about the strategic level and your professional judgment and your assessment of where we are, because that's what we turn to you for. So I'd like to hear what changes you've made and how you've approached this. What on a high level basis, not the details. What have you changed in your approach that you're excited about, that you think are going to bring benefits to us? And I'd also like to hear about the places where you see gaps in at the high level on funding, sort of things that keep you up at night. So if you could, Director Miller, just focusing on the work plans, address those questions, and then I'll turn to our city manager.
Yeah, so I guess just start with, the changes in our approach. We were extremely optimistic on the first round, like, oh, we can do all those projects. We have money, sure. And really had to step back and, I'd like to thank, Jonathan, our deputy director, to think about, let's look at the hours, like how many hours are there in a day or in a week? And people are allowed to take vacation, and we encourage that, and that time's gone. And, just starting to really break down and look at it and say, no, actually, I don't think we can do that. And really having to pull back. I mean, it's still a very optimistic plan, but, you just keep thinking like, oh, back in the day, I could do 6 projects. Well, I mean, is that really realistic? And so, that was our changes in our approach, was really kind of looking at how much staff time do we have, and how much is our business as usual tasks that we do every single day and week, and all of the meetings that we have, both from, internal and external stakeholders, just to try to accomplish things. And then that gets broken up in your day. So how many hours do you really have to work consistently on something? And just really thinking about that and getting granular on our sides is kind of the changes in our approach, is scaling back. And we took off several projects off of the list that we would love to do, but we just, want to be a little more realistic than just optimistic.
And how did you prioritize those?
So those are actually, you'll see this in a future council meeting, but it was based on our rankings. Okay. And so the next projects on the list were the ones that got moved to another fiscal year, or if they don't, several of them were not grant funded. So we don't have the funds yet. We might have, fund balance, but we don't have a grant that says we have to start this project this fiscal year, or we might lose the money, which is kind of how a lot of the projects ended up on our work plan.
So what keeps you up at night?
Probably emergencies, storm season, more of on the operation and maintenance side, probably on just the city versus the project side.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Now I'll turn to our city manager and focus on the goals, objectives, and policy focus areas, and all of those high level things. Where do you think we are on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being crushing every single one of them. Where are we?
That's a great question. I think in doing that analysis of putting all those progress updates together, the number that fits in my head, it's not that we're 50% there, but across the board, that feels at a gut level about right. So some of these initiatives maybe were, 30 or 40%, others, were to completion. So on balance, the 2-year goals and objectives, I think we're at a midpoint where we're tracking to achieve a lot of the things that are, a lot of things have begun, and then the next phase over the next fiscal year will be some degree of completion or getting the next phase of the work done. I feel like we're in really good shape.
Well, that's good and positive. So now I have to ask you the question, what keeps you up at night?
That's a great question. And I was writing my answer down that I would have answered in part similar to what April said, but I think one of the goals and objectives we identify as new revenue sources, and grants are great and they will only get us so far. And one of the things I'm really excited about that April's working on in her work plan is these plans, because the plans are going to identify all the deferred maintenance. We know it up here, but the deferred maintenance on our buildings and our infrastructure across the city, the sales tax, the revenue base for the city does not keep pace with addressing all of those needs. And it's a constant competing priority. How do we, maintain the highest levels of employee compensation at the same time we've got storm drains failing and that could flood our city? So I think getting more data, really understanding the magnitude of the problem, and then being able to plan for what are potential new long-term revenue sources be that aren't reliant on the volatility of sales tax, for example. So there's opportunities, I think, and better understanding the magnitude of what we face so that we can better plan for the future and identify those kind of strategic initiatives that we need to be looking at. How do we think about what is the city going to look like at 30 years from now, and make sure we're doing those things to be proactive and address them before failures. I think San Quentin Pump Station ended up $9 million for one pump station, and we've got 5 more that need to be replaced. So that's some of the stuff that keeps me up at night.
Well, and thank you for that level of focus, because that's what we need. We need to understand what the big competing interests are, so that we can make those balances. So, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Councilmember Yoranz Gulati.
Yes, thank you so much for the report. And I mean, the planning and also like the data, it is so helpful for us, but for everybody really to see, because there is a lot happening and we all want to have our projects, done immediately. So this is really great for all of us to understand what it takes. I had many of my questions actually haven't been already answered. I guess a question that I have is when you mentioned that you were removing some of the projects, and do you still have them somewhere, like in a holding place, or do you remove some of them, go like, okay, we don't need this one anymore because now we have that?
They'll be shown in the second year of the capital improvement program that will get presented to you. So it just got moved from year 1 to year 2. So they did not disappear.
So they're still there. Okay, great. So in terms of, I guess, grants and capacity, I know sometimes they are like in a world of grants. How do you prioritize which grants to write? And so that's part 1 of my question. Part 2 of my question, and maybe with my nonprofit hat, rely on volunteers. Is if you were to have like volunteers writing grants, will that something that the city could consider, or will that add more work to the city?
I think it really depends on the type of grant. I mean, it still takes effort by city staff to figure out how it works in our work plan and you know, all of the planning documents we have. One of the annual programs that Joanna showed was listing, you know, grant procurement, and you know, we have a budget set aside every year to do that, and they're expensive to fill out. So yeah, I mean, I guess volunteers do help in some ways. We do have some of our bicycle and pedestrian advocates who do all these great sketches for us that, you know, thankfully they allow us to use in our grant applications that help us. But really looking at the priorities and the priority projects, it's what the, you know, we have a list. We have our bicycle and pedestrian citywide plan, and that has a lot of different projects listed, but it's really what does the grant application look for? Like some of them, you know, they're key to be, you know, attached to a disadvantaged neighborhood. That's one of the keys. One of them needs to have multimodal. So you need to have both bikes, peds, and transit. So you need to make sure that's incorporated in it. So there's a bunch of different requirements in all of these different grants. So we try to look at not only our citywide bicycle and pedestrian plan, but also the newly adopted local road safety plan now has a bunch of projects identified. And so now those are projects that have been identified in a document, and we get extra points in some of these grants by picking projects that are in all these plans. And if they're in both plans, that helps us even more. So it's really just dependent on what grants come out. And, you know, the infrastructure bill that was passed at the federal level a few years ago really infused a bunch of different money and a bunch of different grants. And yeah, it's complicated to manage all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you. And speaking of volunteers for low-hanging fruit, like maintaining some areas in the neighborhoods, is that something that volunteers can do? I mean, I know that we have some volunteers that they go and do graffiti removal and things like that. So what's the best way to, I mean, will that be a nightmare for you to control? Or is that something that you are like, yeah, the more the merrier?
Well, we do have a volunteer program, and I wish I knew the website off the top of my head. You could probably look up cityofsanrafael.org and type in volunteer. And so there are different volunteer events that are organized, whether it's trash cleanup or a bunch of different things. So that's where I would look for volunteers. They're usually managed through our sustainability group in the city manager's office, not through Public Works.
Great. And today I learned that some of our pumps are actually running all year round, not only during storms, which I didn't know. So that also explains a lot of why we dedicate so much funding and resources. So yeah, that was great. So thank you again for the report. It's great.
Thank you. I just have a few questions. My colleagues have asked great ones. And I'm trying to stay at the high level. I really appreciated Councilmember Bush's questions, but it's hard not to be granular when you just presented a lot of granular data. I was really taken with the C-click fix, 235 requests per month. And I'm curious if you have a sense or an idea of what that increase is due to, because this is what I'm supposing is that number's not going to plateau. It's going to keep on going up. So if we already know that today, what tools are we going to put in place, knowing that it's just on an uprise, and Bedica's data actually shows that in terms of legal dumping and what this C-click fix.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think there'll be an uptick. I mean, that's one of our standard responses now when we get emails is, you know, thank you for your request. If you want to follow, what's happening with that request, we'll give a link and we'll input it for different members of the community so they can follow, their requests throughout. And that's going to continue to increase. I know now we've implemented it citywide, so there's other departments, which is going to help with all of our collaboration. We're still working on the details, though, of like how this gets managed. Our administration team has done a great job trying to figure out kind of what are standard responses to help us respond quicker, or if our team's out in the field and they fix a pothole, they could take a photo with their phone and then click, this has been completed. And so there's standard responses. So we're trying to figure out how to be more efficient in how to respond and show that we've completed tasks. So it's an ongoing effort. I mean, it's really been a push over the last few months, similar time frame as doing this work plan, but we've been trying to figure out kind of what are the next steps and what are our policies going to be around response times and the impacts to staff.
And I'm so glad that you are thinking that through. I think response times, our community is willing to wait when they understand that they're being heard, one, and that it is being addressed. And I love the idea of having a photo that closes out the ticket, as it were. And really, when we get emails, which we do, I think every single week about a pothole, we all say now, go to this form and fill it out. Back in the old days, we would email you or the previous DPW director, and that just, it doesn't work. It's not efficient for all the reasons that we've talked about. So I do want to say, I appreciate how robust you're making it and that you're continuing to make it more robust, because it's going to have to be as powerful as possible. So, so thank you on that. And it's funny, I don't know if it was a question or a comment for Vedika. I was going to follow up on Vice Mayor Hills, but I really want to get super granular because, of course, you see the data and what does everyone want to start to do? We want to ask you why. What do you think we should do? So knowing that he had that reaction, I had that reaction, I'm sure many people have that. I'm curious if in this conversation, if there'll be a place as our residents start to look at it, that they can now go back, let's say the property theft, for example, they have a link on that page. They can go to SRPD, residential, what you can do to protect your home. Have you guys talked about that? Because I thought it really pinged for me on the property crime, because that's, we need to figure out what we can do. It also there was another one, foot traffic, how do we have people go to our economic strategic plan? I don't know. So can you speak to that? Because we don't want people just to have questions and be like, oh, we want to try to direct them if we can a little bit. So what's your thinking on that?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. And we have started adding links to the landing pages and to the pages to the existing plans that we have that aim to change those metrics or aim to impact those metrics. But I think it's a great idea too to start including links to resources, for example, to SeeClickFix on the SeeClickFix request page. The intent is really to make this a landing page of information, a wealth of information for residents and for you all. And so, and it's a live page. We can continue adding, and we plan to continue adding and updating the data, but we will also continue to add resources, and that's a great idea. To link to the police department.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I'm so blown away from what we saw a year ago to where you are now. And I do love the robustness of the information, but again, already proactively trying to manage for what's going to come next, what our community is going to ask for. Great. Thank you. That was my question. I'm sure we might have more, and I know we can't wait to get to comments, but you're going to have to wait. We are going to open up public comment on this item. So if you would like to share your thoughts on this update and work plan, now is your time. I'll look to the room. Welcome.
I'm Bob Middlestead, Gerstle Park. I just want to say the ClickFix thing is the best thing ever. I use it frequently and I just love it. It's nice to feel that there's some response on the other side. So it's great. Congratulations.
Thank you. We like positive affirmation. Thank you. Anyone else like to provide comment? Come on down. Come on, Mr. Bishop. Don't be shy.
Ross Bishop, Spinnaker Point. It's impossible to sit through a presentation like this and not just be humbled. It's funny how we all come to these meetings with our own little problem, and it just ends up feeling like our own stupid little problem. So I really commend the staff. I've always bragged about this staff to everybody I talk to. The amount of work that gets done and the quality of the work that gets done is nobody really appreciates that unless you come and sit through something like this. And I just wish more people would. With regard to my stupid little problem, so as you know, we've been pursuing the parking thing for 12 years, and I'm super thrilled that it's one of the priorities of the city, and it's on this list, one of those bullets somewhere. And I just wanted to comment that it's my job to kind of speak for the 400 people in Spinnaker Point and Bay Point. And also I'm kind of probably a voice for the East San Rafael group as a whole, and in some ways for the city. This particular project it's great. It's behind. we were presented with information from the consultants, and they gave a schedule as they would have to do. And it showed public outreach in March and April, and leading to presentation of the proposed ordinance changes to the city council in September. I hear today that it's out next year. Great. I completely understand why that might be the case. The request I would make is that, and John's been phenomenal in terms of his participation with this, and Micah and stuff. And when these I don't know how somebody does this, but the city council today and the city staff are so much better at the communication with the residents and the communities and stuff. And that is we're all thankful for that. And if we can continue that. So when a known schedule shifts, if you could let people like me know, because I'm the voice for 400 people and I have to spread that out, and then they come to me, blah, blah, blah. So it's got to be hard to have this information even think to tell me or people like me, but that would be my only request. And I'm hoping that my stupid little problem doesn't fall off the list and end up, because we've been pushing this, it's been pushed underneath the rug for a lot of years, and everybody's working hard, and so anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Anybody else have any comments on all this information? Yep, sure, come on down.
I'm Carson Anderson. I'm a founding board member of COST, Coalition of Sensible Taxpayers here in Marin. I have a comment regarding the Santa Fe Library. That's one of the projects. And using the citizens' initiative to put the library parcel tax on the ballot is an error in our view. And it's also, we think, an abuse of the intent of the law. Support for the much needed Santa Fe Library would have been very high and could have cleared probably the 2/3 hurdle if the tax was affordable and if it had been supported with a good outreach campaign. Instead, relying heavily on a large donation, Santa Fe hired signature gatherers and paid about $20 per signature to qualify it for the ballot. Our sensible tax criteria specifically condemns abuses of the citizens' initiative process to enrun the taxpayer protection provided by the requirement to gain 2/3 approval. This clearly does not pass the smell test for grassroots initiative by citizens. So we're unhappy with this decision, and we would have appreciated an opportunity to work with the city on a more appropriate approach, giving our willingness to support taxes that are truly necessary and meet our sensible tax criteria.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Anyone else have comments on the work plan and goals and objectives? Not seeing any additional comments, I'll close the public comment and bring it back to the council for further comments. And I'll start with Vice Mayor Hill. And as City Manager said, we are simply providing information and receiving the report. So here's your time for feedback. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Kate. And thank you, City Manager Alilovich. Thank you, Vedeka. Thank you, Director Miller. And thank you, Joanna, for your presentation this evening. It was a lot of ground to cover. And as often what my colleague, Councilmember Bushy does, I will attempt to do, because I love how she frames it, which is, let's take a step back. One of the reasons why I think, at least I joined this council, is the adherence to thinking about what is our vision, what is our mission, and how does that translate into policy objectives, but also the day-to-day operations. The way that Director Miller characterized the business as usual, it's 3 words, but it encompasses what staff do to go out in the community every day and make certain that things continue to run for our community members and visitors. And so to see before us the report out, well, what are our policies and objectives and how are they being translated? These are initiatives that go above and beyond business as usual. These are bold assertions of what we're trying to do to move the needle. So I appreciate the update on progress. I appreciate the insight, Director Miller and Joanna, that you gave today about how do we set expectations about how bold we can be. You didn't say it exactly this way, but I would love for staff to, obviously we want to make as many promises as we can, but also set expectations that things happen. And I think it's okay to say that. And as we make a promise to our community that we're going to do everything we can within our power to do bold things, but we also need to make certain that we're responding to urgent matters. So I think that was what I got from your presentation. So I hope the community heard it that way, because that's how I heard it. And Vedika, thank you for continuing on behalf, I know you stood forth for the entire digital department. The expectation, I think, of the community this year and going forward is more desire for data, and not just any data, but high quality data, data that they can trust. So I even appreciated your narration of, we got this new data set in, and I think it's important for folks to hear that, because I think the whole point of data is to establish trust and transparency. I know I asked, well, how do we interpret that? And everyone will tell their own stories as they read it. So I do think that on the sidebar on the left, all of those qualitative descriptions are going to be really important, especially as well. This got added on this date, or this is how we're interpreting it. How did we arrive at that interpretation? So there was a lot there, so I'm going to contain my comments there. But thank you for the report tonight. That was great.
Thank you. Councilmember Bushy, go ahead.
Yes, thanks for the report. As Ross said, it is humbling to see all of it. But I really enjoyed hearing the focus on our policy focus areas and drawing that thread through time. How are we measuring up to that and keeping us on track to those, particularly with data sets and dashboards. Love dashboards. So that really helps us get the feedback that we need to understand how those focus areas that we selected and how things are unfolding. And your work plan in all its glorious detail helps us understand on a day-to-day basis what needs to get done and how we keep this massive infrastructure functioning. So fantastic report. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Councilmember Yorans Gulati.
Yes, I echo the sentiment. Thank you so much for the report, for all the work. When I'm thinking about, the priorities that we have and the focus, I'm really happy about that because, I hear like the click fix works and it's awesome, but sometimes we have community members that they don't know how to use it, or maybe they don't use it, or they don't know it exists. So it's good that we have our focus on our priorities to make sure that all our neighborhoods are really taken care of. And really love to hear with the new system how you connect with other departments as well, and maintain that data and we communicate out, because we can have like a system in place that is beautiful, but if it's not maintained like every day, then it kind of like loses the value. So and we have a lot of challenges and none of them are stupid little problems. They are all very valuable, and I think the more we can communicate and the more we can get the word out to the community, I think is pretty amazing the work that the staff does like every day. And I agree with the quality and all the challenges, the limited resources and funding. So, well, I guess funding and people. So thank you so much for the report, but also for the work that you do every day, all of you. Thank you.
Councilmember Kurtz.
Yes, thank you. It's always really good to have this before we start talking about budget, right? Because it really sets that baseline of what's happening and where we're at and that we need more money. So to say the staff from DPW wears many hats is an understatement, and your updates today really showed that, from clearing drains to writing grants, and probably in the same day. A lot of that, it's happening all the time. the dashboard is something that was near and dear when I first came onto council, of wanting to have a one-stop shop to go, because these were questions we were asking all the time. I wonder if we could filter out the quick fix that I've submitted, because I probably have escalated that number. But it also, to Councilmember Micah's comment, it also shows the collaboration of all the departments in working through this. So I really appreciate, I mean, you were the first courageous one to go through and do the work plan. But I think that, for me, the takeaway is actually at the higher level of how we are now structuring the work within the city and managing and prioritizing it and tying it back to the priorities. So it's all coming together. So thank you for being the guinea pig on that. And I think the one thing we can all predict is that there'll be something unexpected that's going to happen. And I think by having this type of report and type of visibility, it gives us the ability to also react to the unexpected. And that's a huge skill in project management. You want to plan for everything, and you know that there's the unexpected. And it's how to plan for the unexpected. And I think that this plan sets us up for that success. So I really appreciate the work gone into it. And I'm looking forward to budget conversations. Thank you.
Thank you. I concur with everything that's been said, enormous amount of work that was presented tonight. And I want to pull out even farther. This is truly where government is evolving to. And this is not business how we did it 10 years ago. And I am so grateful to all the staff and department heads and all the employees that recognize we need to evolve. Our community asked for it. We have data tools that we didn't have before. People are able to access us in a way, us, the council, access all of you in a way that they haven't been able to. So we are really meeting the moment with this. And I've been so looking forward to this for a year, in that we did the 2-year last year. We had the first initial parts and said, oh, what's it going to look like in a year? And to see how far you have come. And for people watching the presentation, you actually had a pared down presentation. I really want people to go look at the staff report. If you look at attachment A, the progress update, that is every single, the goals as well as the policies, and it ties them back. And that's what we've all are saying up here, is knitting together the projects we're doing, the initiatives we have, the programs we have, with moving the needle on both the goals, the neighborhood goals, things like that, as well as the public policy goals. So we're doing something really new and different here. I don't know any other jurisdiction in Marin County that has this level of sophistication in terms of everything top to bottom, both the goals as well as all the way down to the granularity of the work plan. And I know what we'll appreciate going forward is it'll help us be strategic and restrained when new projects, another bright shiny thing comes in, whether it's unexpected that we do need to deal with it or we can wait. And I really appreciate having a document that we can refer to. So there's not a squeaky wheel component. We actually have it right in front of us. So incredible work. I just want to tell every single resident in San Rafael to have them look at this document. So what we heard from public comment, that people don't always know what we're up to. So to that end, I would love that attachment 1, somehow, if someone searches goals and objectives right now, that this document comes up right away, somehow on the same page, so they can start to get understand the breadth of the work you're doing. So appreciate you being the first one. We look forward to all the other departments. We'll be following a similar pattern over time that will really help us get to our goals and objectives. So you're on the right track. That's the input. I think you've heard that. You're on the right track. And there is a motion, or there is an action on this item to accept the report.
I'll raise the motion. Oh,
go ahead.
I'll raise the motion to receive the report.
And
I'll
there's
second.
moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bushy.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hill.
Aye.
Councilmember Kurtz.
Aye.
Councilmember Eden Scalati.
Aye.
Mayor Kate.
Aye, that motion carries 5-0. Thank you all for all your work. The next item on our agenda this evening is the Successor Memorandum of Understanding with San Rafael Police Association, SRPA.
Apologies. Good evening. And so I'm just going to provide a brief summary and overview of the Successor Memorandum of Understanding with the San Rafael Police Association starting June 1, 2024 through June 30, 2027. And so just some highlights. The city has met over the past several months with the Police Association to determine what the wages and compensation would be included in other terms would be included within the Memorandum of Understanding. And so just at a high level, the city's negotiations were informed by some key points. Fiscal sustainability and predictability, of course, wanting to seek out a 3-year MOU, recruitment and retention of employees, compensation of comparable agencies as specified in the current MOU. And so one of the things that we have to keep in mind that we have benchmark agencies that are included within the Memorandum of Understanding, so which it identifies local jurisdictions that we consider benchmarks as well as classifications. And so just at a very high level, all classifications in the bargaining group will receive a 3% cost of living salary increase in the, during the term of this MOU for each of the 3 years. In year 1, the total value of the wages and equity adjustments, depending upon the position, equates to a 7.57% wage increase. In year 2, the total value equates to a 4.16% wage increase, which also includes equity adjustments, which vary depending upon the classification, again, going back to those benchmarks. In year 3, it equates to a 4.33% wage base increase, also including equity adjustments. One of the big changes in the agreement this year is we made a significant movement on our flexible cafeteria plan, where employees select their level of healthcare benefits as well as their health insurance provider. And so you could see in the staff report for the police association, the current city contribution was $853 and moves to $950 and an effective date of December 2024. Employee plus dependent was $1,708.13, moving to $1,900 in December 2024. And employee plus family is $2,220.68, moving to $2,400. One of the other key changes in terms of the employee health benefits is in prior Memorandum of Understanding, there was a 3% inflator. Most recently, there was quite a significant spike in the Kaiser Barrier premium rates. And so what we've agreed upon in this MOU before you today is the city would take on up to 5% of that increase in Kaiser Barrier premium. The employee would take above 5%, going up to 10%. And then the city and the employee would split anything beyond between 10 and 15%. So if we reuse an example, if Kaiser were to increase their rates up to, say, 12%, the city would take the first 5%, the employee would take the next 5%, and that remaining 2% would be split between the city and employee. So the city would take on 1% and the employee would take on that 1%. We also looked at certificate incentives, bilingual pay premiums. They were also adjusted as well, longevity, and several non-economic items, including gender neutral language throughout, incorporation of language in the previous side letter regarding the recognition of Juneteenth, bereavement leave, paid parental leave, which is something that you'll see not only in the San Rafael Police Association Memorandum of Understanding, but also the one that's being brought forward to you tonight for the San Rafael fire. So we include a bank of paid parental leave following the birth or adoption of her child, as well as a bank of up to 80 hours of paid leave to care for a family member at the end of their life. And so in summary, the current annual salary and benefit for the 82 employees that are represented by the San Rafael Police Association equates to $497,000 and $590. The additional the additional costs over the terms of the agreement are $7,979,900 I'm having trouble with numbers tonight. $7,979,998 for an effective date of June 1, 2024. The increase in compensation is included, in a resolution, is being reflected in the city's 24-25 proposed budget. And so, again, tonight we're asking you to approve the memorandum of understanding, which is included with the staff report. We have a clean version, so to speak, and we also have a track change version. So not only the council, but interested members of the public can see what specific changes have been brought forward through this MOU. And so that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions following council member deliberation.
Thank
Mayor
you.
Kate, I
Yes.
just wanted to add a couple of appreciations. The negotiation team, which has been led by Angela Robinson-Pignon, Assistant City Manager, Paul Navazio, Finance Director, Marissa Sanchez, HR Director, and HR staff, Nick Biz, Sylvia Gonzalez. The work done by this team over the last 6 months has been an incredible amount of analysis and data gathering and trying to come up with proposals that are going to meet all the objectives that Angela mentioned. And I also just want to acknowledge the labor teams for the associations for both police and fire, and our SEIU friends here today. It takes a lot of time and energy on their part to come to the table and bargain in good faith. So it really is a collaborative effort, and the way we approach bargaining is we all want the same thing. We want our employees paid as much as we possibly can pay them, and in a competitive market. So I just appreciate the energy and time it's taken to get to this point. I think in my career of bargaining in the public sector over 25 years, I've never seen a contract come for a month effective date prior to the MOU expiring, and that speaks volumes to the collaboration and teamwork for both teams.
Thank you. Questions? Any questions on this end? Okay. Not seeing any questions. I will open up for public comment on this item. Yeah, sure. Come on down. Yep. I'm accepting public comment on the MOU for the SRPA. Okay. Any other public comment or interest in public comment? Not seeing any, I will close it and bring it back to the council for additional comments. Vice Mayor Hill?
No comments.
Yeah, Councilmember Kurtz.
Nope, just thank you to both groups for working so hard to get to this place.
Thank you. Additional comments?
Likewise. This is the same thing.
Councilmember Murphy?
But just to put it into historical context, this is the most generous isn't the right word, but the best proposal that we've been able to bring to this group, to our employees generally in a long time. And I am delighted that we are in a position to recognize our workers in this way.
Thank you. And I'll just add, thank you, City Manager, for the comments that you made at the beginning and for the negotiation team. We know there are challenges in recruitment across the city, and especially in the police department. And so I am very hopeful that with this completion of this timely and having this here in May, that it will provide both the support for existing employees who are out there every single day on our streets, as well as continue to help attract new employees to our police department, so we don't have those unfilled vacancies that make it harder for everyone. So thank you for all involved, and I would entertain a motion on this item, please.
I'll make the motion. Adopt a resolution approving a successor memorandum of understanding, MOU, pertaining to compensation and working conditions for the San Rafael Police Association, SRPA, beginning June 1st, 2024 and ending June 30th, 2027.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bushy.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hill.
Aye.
Councilmember Kurtz.
Aye.
Councilmember Yedan Scalati.
Aye.
Mayor Kate.
Aye, that motion carries 5-0. Thank you so much. The next item I think might have some similarities. The numbers are might be different. The successor memorandum of understanding with the San Rafael Firefighters Association, SRFA.
All right.
Very briefly, we also have the 3-year MOU with a June 1 start. I won't belabor you with the city's priorities. And just to briefly summarize the salary increase. So again, a 3% general salary increase for each year of the MOU. In year 1, it's a total value of 6.91% for the bargaining group, which includes equity adjustments ranging from 1 to 5%. The total value of a 6.39% base wage increase for the bargaining group, which includes equity adjustments ranging between 1 and 3%. In year 3, the total value of a 6.77 base wage increase for the bargaining group with equity adjustments ranging from 0 to 2.5%. The cafeteria plan that I spoke of earlier in terms of the sharing of those costs is the same for the San Rafael Fire Association. There are some other changes as well, including around bilingual pay, out-of-class compensation. In addition to the items that I spoke to regarding paid parental leave and end-of-life care leave, one of the things that is in this agreement is changes around qualifications for captains. I already mentioned about incorporation of the Juneteenth holiday as well. In terms of fiscal impact, the current total annual salary and benefit cost for the 68 employees at SRFA is $19,228,617. Got the numbers right. And then in terms of the overdeterm of this agreement, the contract costs are $8,344,209 for an effective date of June 1st, 2024. The increase in compensation will be reflected in the city's fiscal year 2024-25 budget, and updated funding projections are being provided within the general fund as well as the EMS Paramedic Tax Special Revenue Fund. And so that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions on this item as well.
Thank you. Additional questions? In this way, I don't see any additional questions, so I will open it up to the public for any comment on this item. The MOU for SRFA. Not seeing any public comment, I will close it and bring it back to the council for additional comments and then a motion. Is there additional comments? Additional comments?
Mayor Kate, may I just acknowledge Captain Alviso, who's been patiently sitting in the back of the room, and his leadership on the negotiating team. Thank you for being here, Anthony.
Thank you. And I'll say, and I don't know if there's been better because data set, but we do know that the calls for service for fire continue to increase. And again, I am very grateful to the negotiation team that is bringing us again to us in May before June 1st. We want to support our employees that are here today and continue to be a top-notch place to attract future employees because that's the caliber of employees that we have at the fire department. So thank you for your leadership on that. I would entertain a motion on this item.
I'm happy to make a motion. Let's see. Extended thanks to both teams as well for working so hard on this. Adopt a resolution approving a successor memorandum of understanding MOU pertaining to compensation and working conditions for the San Rafael Firefighters Association, SRFA, beginning June 1st, 2024 and ending June 30th, 2027.
I'll second. Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bushy.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hill.
Aye.
Councilmember Kurtz.
Aye.
Councilmember Yeden's Galati.
Aye.
Mayor Kate.
Aye, that motion carries 5-0. Thank you all for your work. The last item before we adjourn is open time for public expression. I see some folks in the room that might want to have something that they want to share with the council. Yes, go ahead, Bob. I will now open it up for public open time.
So my stupid little project.
There's no stupid.
The good thing about mine is that everybody in the community has their story about an encounter with kids on throttle motorbikes. But the very best thing about my little project is there's an easy way to solve it. And that's to get more information to the public. I've got a brochure here that I'll leave with the city clerk. And if you could just look at it, I know you can't say anything about it. But the very short of this is that under the vehicle code, to be a legal e-bike with the throttle, the motor can't be more than 750 watts and it can't work above 20 miles per hour. The good news is the San Rafael Police Department, March 27, issued a press release that said that. And then May 3rd, 4 police chiefs, led by Chief Norton, Central Marin, said the same thing in a letter to parents. The problem was they didn't name names. They just said, you know, they gave the specifications and said, don't buy them because they're illegal. But they know that Super 73 is the most popular illegal one. And Chief Norton said that in a private meeting or a meeting to the Board of Trustees of TAM Union. And he said, named Super 73, and he said, it's just something we're going to have to educate them on, that their kids can't ride these anymore. But to educate parents on this, they got to know what it is. And so why doesn't the press releases by the police identify them? If you want people to stop creating greenhouse gases, you specify what they can do. But if you want them to stop riding bikes that are having such a high accident rate for 10 to 15-year-olds, we need to tell the parents, don't buy Super 73s. And that's what my brochure is intended to do. I would love it if you all would put this on an agenda item so we can talk about it. I fear that one of the problems is the lawyers. I was a lawyer for 50 years. Don't let the lawyers tell you that Super 73 is going to come in and sue. There's no way they're going to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. And as you know, and I'll tell members of the public, there was a grand jury report regarding e-bikes. So it will be on an upcoming agenda. If you subscribe to the snapshot, you'll know exactly when it's coming forward, and we will be able to talk about it publicly. So thank you. Any additional comments for tonight? Hello, Ms. Locks.
Good evening, Mayor Kate and council members. I'm a little dry right now. I wanted to bring your attention to the Commission on Aging's annual health forum that we're having. What it's like to age in Marin, a cross-cultural conversation. We're having that May 30th from 9 to 2 o'clock or a little later. It'll be at the Embassy Suites, and the tickets are $25. There is a link that you have to go to register, or if you don't want to go to a link, you can call me. And if you don't have any money, you can call me. 415-499-0809. We have some scholarship money. The main issue is we want people to come, not let the money stop them. And the national theme for Older Adults Month, which is May, is Powered by Connection. We're having a panel of different cultures and ethnicities. We have an African American, a Native American, a Hispanic, a Southeast Asian, and a Caucasian who was homeless and is now not homeless. So we have a full range of people to talk about their lived experiences as older adults in Marin County. So we want you to all come and hear what they have to say. Supervisor Sackett will give the welcoming address. So be there or be square, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Salama. Welcome. You probably need to pull up the microphone. There you go.
Good evening, Mayor Kate, council members. My name is Marty Lewis. I'm a building inspector here at the city of San Rafael. Been here for just over 7 years. Love working here. Love coming to work every day. I am a member of the bargaining team for the union, the people sitting behind me. And when we had discussed the bargaining team about the wage increase you're affording fire and EMS, your chief negotiator explained that it's due to the difficulty of recruiting and retaining workers, which seems to be more of a city problem, not a departmental problem. My coworkers and I are overworked, overwhelmed, understaffed, and underpaid. Community development especially has become a revolving door of employees, where now I am the most senior person on the 3rd floor, only being here 7 years. We have 2 building inspectors for the entire city at the moment. We have 2 vacancies. On top of that, one of our code enforcement officials has just put in their 2-week notice. We are going to lose another code enforcement officer in the next coming weeks who is extremely valuable, very bright. We brought him on as a code enforcement 1, and he was green as all green can be. He is now a code enforcement officer 2 that was snatched up by the city of Napa. They're going to bring him on as a code enforcement 1 for $20,000 more a year. So he's going back in his ranking, so to speak, and he's getting more money. So that's kind of bad. We trained him up from nothing, and now he's leaving us. That stings. So how bad is it supposed to get for the rest of us for you to value our work in the same universe as fire and EMS? I know that we are not the tip of the spear like fire, EMS, and police, but we are the backbone of the city. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Anyone else? Don't be shy. Come on, it's late. Come on down.
Good evening. I am James Nunn, Sangerfeld resident and current employee here at the Department of Public Works. I had 2 minutes prepared, but now that you've approved the fire and police contracts, my diatribe is all out the window. I will sum it up with something off the top of my head. I believe that all bargaining units should receive a similar wage increase. We are one city team, together San Rafael, and the current SEIU bargaining situation is not even close to what the cops and the firemen are getting. But I don't have any, the prepared statements are just balled up because I want to talk about C-Click Fix. Every day in the parks, people come up to me and go, hey, this drinking fountain's busted. This park bench is busted. And if we were properly staffed and properly funded, we would be fixing these things. C-Click Fix is putting out fires. It really is. And I send people to C-Click Fix all the time because, they come up to me and go, hey, this bench is broken. And go, well, today I have a shovel and a weed eater. It ain't going to get fixed by me. And so I say, go to C-Click Fix. Your request will be accelerated because by just telling me, I pass it along the bosses and it just gets lost in the wind. Your C-Click Fix numbers will keep going up because without proper staffing and proper funding, I'm going to send them to, it's putting out fires. It's not proactive. If we're properly staffed and funded, basic maintenance of the parks like a drinking fountain would get fixed without someone going to C-Click Fix. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else before I close the public comment? Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alma Hernandez, and I am preschool teacher and the Department of Recreation and Library. And I have working for the city for 25 years. And I'm here today to talk about our team bargaining. So the first thing is our team has been at the bargaining table with the city since January. We have spent months negotiating in good faith. We have compromised time, and again, we have made concessions. We have moved significantly from our original proposals. We have compromised time, and again, we have made concessions. We have moved significantly from our original proposals. We have put aside many of our members' priorities to inch closer to what's being proposed by the city's negotiator. But it takes two sides bargainings in good faith to reach an agreement that works for everyone. The time has come for the city to show the same good faith, to demonstrate your value and respect the hardworking staff who keep this city running. We have been more than reasonable in these negotiations. Now it is the city's turn to get serious about reaching a fair deal that our union members can afford to accept. We are united and our resolve to fight for the contract that will enable us to maintain and improve our city services. We call on your council to take the final step to move towards ratifying this contract so we can move forward together to serve this city. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Rafael Garcia. I work with Department of Public Works Facilities Supervisor. I stand before you today not only as a representative as our local 1021, but as a lifetime resident here with the city of San Rafael, and a voice for the hardworking individuals who keep the community running smoothly day in and day out. Our union members are the backbone of this town, dedicating their time and expertise to ensure that essential services are delivered without fail. However, it's becoming increasingly challenging for our members to make ends meet. The rising cost of living, coupled with stagnant wages, has put a strain on their ability to provide themselves and their families. Despite the unwavering commitment to their roles, many are struggling to keep up with the basic expenses such as housing, healthcare, and education. A raise for our local 1021 union is not only just a matter of fairness, it's a matter of necessity. It's about recognizing the value of their hard work and dedication and ensuring that they are fairly compensated for their vital services they provide to our community. A raise would not only improve the lives of our union members, but also contribute to the overall well-being and prosperity of our town. I urge you to consider the importance of this issue and to support our request for a raise for the members of the local 1021 union. Together, we can ensure that they receive fair compensation they deserve, allowing them to continue serving our community with dedication and professionalism that they have always shown. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. We're ready for you. Welcome.
My name is Pam Klein, and I'm a librarian. Work for the Library and Recreation Department, been working for the city for 28 years. I'd like to talk about fair and equitable pay. Fair and equitable pay is what all city employees deserve. The City Council greatly values the important work in keeping our community safe. This means you cannot ignore the dedicated public servants across all other city departments. The city you lead is full of heroic emergency workers in sanitation, streets, facilities, parks, childcare, recreation, libraries, garage, finance, digital services, and open government, the city clerk's office, the city attorney's office, and parking services. We ensure that you live in a clean and hygienic community. We keep your roadways safe. We maintain your green spaces. We keep the machinery of government running smoothly. All of these roles are vital threads in the fabric of our city. Yet many of us struggle to make ends meet on salaries that pale in comparison to what you've afforded elite city workers. It is causing us to lose valued employees to better paying agencies, and it weakens our ability to provide quality services to the residents. We should value all of our public servants equally through our pay practices. Respect the dignity of our labor and the contributions of every one of your employees who work for the public good. Demonstrate that you mean it when you claim our city has a commitment to efficiency and morale across the workplace. This is how we will once again live up to our full potential in serving the people. I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else?
We actually have to pay the same. Yeah. Good evening. My name is Jocelyn Hallrome. I'm a child care director at Glenwood Children's Center, and I've worked for the city for 31 years. When our job classification was finally studied in 2021, I had already been here for decades. It was determined we were being compensated 24% below our average counterparts. After spending money on this study, the city did nothing about this revelation. Now, 3 years later, the city's plan is to keep undervaluing us. Take a moment to ask yourself, why do I feel this way? Is the hard work we do of low value? Are the children and families we serve of low value? Is this how you regard the future of our community? The families we serve can no longer afford for the city to devalue me and the rest of our child care department and the services we provide. We've been waiting for decades for the leaders of the city to address this mistake. Our compensation study was supposed to have been concluded in January. If you don't think another few weeks or even months is beyond our stamina, you're sorely mistaken. We have no choice but to fight because we've got nothing left to lose.
Thank you for your comments. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Riley Hallroan, and I have worked for the City of San Rafael as a childcare aide for almost 5 years now. I am also the child of someone who has worked for the City of San Rafael for 31 years. Childcare is not babysitting. It's the vital work of nurturing and educating our youngest, most vulnerable citizens during their most formative years. Study after study shows the profound lifelong impacts that quality early childhood education has on social, emotional, cognitive, and academic development. And yet, you pay our childcare workers poverty-level wages that in no way reflect the skill and importance of our work. We always say that our children are our future, but your pay scales for our childcare workers tell a very different story, one that shows you severely undervalue this crucial profession and those who dedicate their careers to shaping young minds. The revised compensation you're proposing for our department is far from competitive or commensurate with the importance of our work. Our city's childcare program allows parents to go to work, contributes to early education, and strengthens our community. We cannot claim to prioritize families if we do not properly compensate those educating and nurturing our children every day. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you. So, we appreciate your time. My name is Jana Blunt. I'm here in support of these purple people. I know you've been dealing with a lot of rapscallions in the public comments, and you've had to move your public comment to the end of the meeting. You're not alone. A lot of agencies have had to do this. But just keep in mind that even though I know it's not intentional on any of your parts, putting public comment at the end of the meeting is kind of against the spirit of participation and democracy. It's also classist, racist, and sexist. Working class people don't have time to be here this late. You know, it's almost 9:30. I've got a 2-hour drive home, and I know several of these people have to go across the bridge to get home tonight, and they're incredible for sticking it out. It just goes to show how important this topic is. But just keep in mind that, you know, working class people of color and women disproportionately have less time to spend with their families. And this type of thing gives people less incentive to participate in the democratic process. So when you get these scallywags coming in and saying terrible, stupid things, cut them off. Just cut them off. It works. And then, you know, you can get public comment out of the way and then get on with the rest of the meeting. For the rest of my time, I just wanted to mention that it's got to feel really good to get the contracts for fire, EMS, and police ratified. It's such a good feeling. I know it from experience. It feels great. It's nice to be able to move on for the next few years and do what you're supposed to be doing. But it's all about what our community deserves. We can't invest in our community if we don't invest in our services. And the main way to do that is to invest in our workforce. So there's enough money to care for our emergency workers in the way that they deserve. And we know that there's also enough money to care for everybody else at the city the way that we deserved. We're tired, we're sick of being valued less than our fellow city worker siblings. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Welcome.
Hello, Mayor and council members. I am Diane Dillon, and I am the Executive Director of Western Council of Engineers. And I have a unique perspective. I represent the staff engineers here at the City of San Rafael. And my perspective is, one, I'm a resident of the City of San Rafael. And I also started as an engineer with the City of San Rafael in 1998. I retired in 2020, so I had a long career here. So I've been gone just a little over 3 years. And in that 3 years, staff engineers have rotated 3 times. There's been 3 iterations with the exception of 2 people. April made a great statement today about that turnover, but the median length of time that someone is working there the median time in the seat is 5 months. There's no historical knowledge anymore, and that is a detriment to the city. We have done so many projects. Some of those slides up there were projects that I did. I built the 3rd and C Street parking garage, built the Pickleweed Park, the Alburo Center. I did the Terralinda Pool. I did the Court Street Plaza in 2002. And then, you know, when I was walking down here, I did small little projects like the ramp that you get down from the parking lot to this building. So the engineers have so much impact on the different elements of the city and the city, you know, residents. We have so much impact, but we're just, every time an engineer comes in, then then they find another job. They find another job for more money, and they gain the experience. They're only here for a few months and then they move on. So to me, you know, I agree with SEIU. You know, there needs to be an overall respect for the workers. I know police and fire are important, but I don't think people understand what the engineers do for this city and how much impact they really do. Our names are not on any, we go to the openings and our names are not on any plaque or anything like that, but we do serve this city and serve it well.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Yeah. Welcome.
Hi, Shinji Sakai Egi. So I lived in San Anselmo. I grew up there for the most part, but there was about 7-year time when I was living in San Anselmo and I was commuting to the city to work for the city and county of San Francisco, doing compliance. And I think maybe their union represents them, maybe they don't, this area. But so I commuted, 3.5 hours, 4 hours, sometimes I'm riding back on a bicycle coming back, and you can envision just, I get home, I basically have to get ready for the next workday, right? And so I did this because I was trying to make more money, right? I was trying to survive here, just like everybody else here, right? All of us here. The other thing I just want to mention is that, we've had conversations here today about the challenges of retaining talent, good people, right? And so I think it's really important to get this resolved. I mean, just from my, I served as a union organizer, I've worked in a similar position to them. It looks like this is the first step to escalation. There are things that keep people away from, things like people might perceive as bureaucratic, or, even people might even be anti-union, right? Unfortunately, in my opinion. And so hopefully this situation will not escalate, right? Let's do what we can to retain what we have and to make it welcoming for new people to come in. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay, just want to make sure. Well, thank you for staying through the previous agenda items. Hopefully they were a little bit interesting, even though the hour got late. So thank you for your public comment this evening. We appreciate you being here and what you do every single day out there for our community. There is no successor agency on our agenda, so this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Everybody's lost.